Chapter 733. Today was the best day of the year in Aincrad. There seemed to be something else in the forest. Strange sounds of birds, beasts, and insects could be heard from every corner of the forest, making the already good environment even livelier. Coupled with the clear sky and the gentle breeze, it was a great day to go for an outing. Deep in the forest, inside a wooden mansion, Asuna is sitting on the sofa in casual clothes. She's sewing a piece of clothing that's starting to take shape. Judging by her nimble movements, she must have gotten a lot more proficient in her tailoring skills. She seems to be enjoying herself as well. She has a smile on her face that can topple a city. After a year, Asuna had changed a lot. Although the 18-year-old Asuna was a little taller, her chestnut-colored hair was a little longer, and her figure was a little more curvy. However, she exuded a mature, gentle temperament. Compared to a year ago, her charm had increased by a lot. He believed that if Asuna went out again, she would definitely attract more fans. Her old fans might even go crazy for her. Unfortunately, Asuna didn't have the chance to do so. Since quitting the Knights of the Blood, Asuna hasn't been seen in public since. In other words, aside from Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Cheyenne, and Silica who drop by from time to time, no one else is lucky enough to witness Asuna's transformation. But it's a big mistake to think that Asuna only changed her appearance and temperament. Asuna likes to live a peaceful life, but she's also a person who doesn't like to admit defeat. Even though she's no longer a member of Knights of the Blood, she didn't fall behind in level. Every night, after Yui goes to bed, Wu Yan and Asuna would go to the labyrinth area to level up. Asuna would even go with Wu Yan when they found the boss room. Plus, Wu Yan would teach her some combat skills from time to time. Asuna's level, equipment, and actual strength are all the same. None of them were weaker than Kirito. In fact, they were showing signs of surpassing him. In the past year, Kirito's strength increased day by day. It can be said that Kirito is now one of the top 3 players in SAO. Other than Wu Yan and Heathcliff, no one dared to say that they were stronger than Kirito, but Wu Yan dared to say that Asuna was stronger than him. One could imagine Asuna's current strength. It was also not to be underestimated. It was just that no one knew about it. Except for Wu Yan, everyone's impression of Asuna was still the same as a year ago. Asuna was considered a reclusive powerhouse. Unlike Asuna, who has obviously changed, Yui's change is as good as nothing. Her long black hair reached her waist and her bangs were flat. Even her height was still the same. The only difference was that the pure white dress had been replaced with an ordinary shirt and pleated skirt. It made Yui look a little more lively and cute. However, if one were to look closely, they would notice that although Yui still looked innocent on the surface, there was a different kind of light in her pure eyes. At this time, Yui was lying on the sofa with her hands supporting her cheeks. She tilted her head and looked at Asuna, who was sewing clothes. She couldn't help but ask, "Mom, are you sewing clothes for yourself?" It's no wonder Yui asked this question. At home, Wu Yan and Yui's clothes were made by Asuna, but aside from Asuna, one of them is a boy and the other is a child. Asuna's clothes are obviously for women, and the style isn't a child size. Asuna is the only one who can wear it. Asuna smiled softly and didn't slow down her sewing. "No, this is a gift for your Aunt Liz." Hearing this, Yui nodded in relief and wrinkled her nose. "Can you make it in time?" "It's done," Asuna said as she sewed the last stitch. The next moment, a youthful and beautiful piece of clothing appeared in Asuna's hand and she held it up. "It's done. We just need to wait for your daddy to come back and we can go." "Can we go now?" Yui's eyes lit up. She suddenly sat up from the sofa and jumped to the ground. She couldn't wait to say, "Dad, come back quickly." Wu Yan opened the door and heard Yui's words. He smiled and shook his head. "There's still some time before we start. I'm not too late, right?" "Daddy." Yui turned around and looked at the door. When she saw Wu Yan, her small face beamed with joy. She ran to his side and hugged Wu Yan's arm. "Daddy, you're too slow. Uncle Kirito and Aunt Liz might get angry, I'm not as stingy as you are. Wu Yan pinched Yui's nose, causing her to beg for mercy. Asuna stood up and walked to Wu Yan. She helped him fix his clothes and asked gently. How's the harvest? Well, I got a few good ones. They're not as good as S-grade ingredients, but they're still very precious. Wu Yan put down the bucket in his other hand. With Kirito's gluttonous personality, I don't think there's anything better than this. Don't say that. Asuna patted Wu Yan's shoulder. He didn't know why she was blaming him, but her intimate action made Wu Yan very happy. How's your side? Wu Yan looked at the pretty dress in Asuna's hand. He praised her. Not bad, other than jewelry. Clothes are a girl's favorite thing to wear. Wu Yan rubbed his chin as if he was thinking of something. But Liz looks like a tomboy. She probably likes weapons more than clothes, right? Asuna rolled her eyes. She clicked on an item on the clothes and stored it in her inventory. Then, she took a few steps back. Well then, I'll go change first. Wu Yan subconsciously glanced at Asuna, who was wearing a spaghetti strap dress that exposed her white shoulders, arms, and legs. He looked at her body that's becoming more and more attractive by the day and gulped. He cursed in his heart and turned his head away. He didn't want to get aroused. Daddy, Daddy. Yui tugged at Wu Yan's sleeve and said with wide eyes. Aren't you going to cook those fish? Uncle Kirito will definitely like Daddy's cooking more than the ingredients. Wu Yan pursed his lips and rubbed Yui's head. Yui, you should know that when your mother and I got married, Uncle Kirito didn't even give us a single core. Now that he's married to Aunt Liz, we should be grateful that we're able to give him a present. That's right, after a year, Kirito and Liz's relationship finally came to fruition. Maybe it's because they've reached the 98th floor and SAO is about to end. Kirito and Liz felt that it would be a pity if they don't get married in their last moments in this world. A while ago, they suddenly announced that they're getting married, which caught everyone off guard. They didn't even have time to prepare a present. That's why Wu Yan gave them food and Asuna gave them clothes. When Daddy and Mommy got married? Yui clasped her hands together and her eyes sparkled. I wonder what Daddy and Mommy looked like when they got married. I really want to see it. Wu Yan blinked and chuckled. I'll tell you when I have time, okay. While they were talking, Asuna also came out of her room. She was wearing a white dress and a small jacket, and she walked in front of the two. Okay, let's go. Chapter 734. Aincrad, 59th floor. This was a floor with a very complicated terrain. There were mountains, hills, highlands, forests, and even caves here. If a player were to walk through this floor, the scenery around them would change after a short while. It's a strange sight to behold. There are both good and bad environments. The good ones are comparable to the 47th floor's Garden of Flowers. The bad ones are comparable to the Snow Mountain in the western area of the 55th floor. And a small town called Daoist was one of those good environments. It's a small town made of grass and wind. It's filled with greenery. Whenever a player walks through this place, they'll never lose sight of the greenery around them. There's always a gentle breeze blowing through the grass. The buildings here aren't as new as the ones in other towns. Instead, they look like rural buildings with chimneys on their roofs. However, this scenery isn't depressing at all. In fact, it's refreshing. Today, Kirito and Liz's wedding will be held on a grassy field in Daoist that has no buildings and no end in sight. Even though it's a wedding, Kirito and Liz only invited a few friends and family to attend. It's not like Wu Yan and Asuna's wedding where they invited a large number of players and guilds. It caused a huge commotion in Aincrad and almost caused an overcrowding. This was also the reason why Kirito and Liz chose Daoist as the venue for their wedding. It was impossible to create a grand scene like the one on the 47th floor. Kirito didn't know if it was because Liz didn't like to receive everyone's blessings while surrounded by a sea of people, or because Kirito didn't want to stand out as a solo player. But Wu Yan thinks it's more likely that it's the latter. Kirito doesn't have that much money to host such a grand wedding even if his wife is the owner of a weapon shop. Daoist isn't far from the 59th floor's labyrinth area. Most of the players who've been to the 59th floor have been here before, so they're familiar with this place. When Asuna led the clearers to the 59th floor, she used this place as their base, so she's more familiar with Danak than the average player. And so, the family of three walked down from the portal and headed in a certain direction under Asuna's lead. It has been 3 years since the launch of SAO, and most of the players who are really playing the game have gone to the higher floors, such as the 59th floor. Not many players could be seen on this floor. Along the way, Wu Yan, Asuna, and Yui only saw NPCs. He didn't see a single player. Walking on the dirt path, there were neatly arranged buildings on both sides of the path. The NPCs were doing their usual routine of fetching water, washing clothes, cooking, and taking a stroll. Everything was there. Even tomorrow, they would still repeat the same actions without any hesitation. Not even the slightest bit of stiffness, however. It was precisely these actions that were constantly repeated. Otherwise, no matter how beautiful the environment was, there would be very few people who would visit a place without any signs of life. Moreover, those actions made people feel like they're living a real life. Looking at them made people feel comfortable. Not long after, the surrounding buildings began to become fewer and fewer, and the people disappeared without them noticing. Green fields gradually appeared on both sides of the path, and the path was also covered by grass. Everything in front of them was green. A large lawn slowly appeared in front of Wu Yan and the others. On the grassland not far away, a few tables covered with white tablecloths were arranged together under the cover of a huge tree. A small group of about 10 to 20 people was pacing back and forth around the tables. They were chatting about something while busying themselves with the movements in their hands. Faint laughter could also be heard. Seeing this, Wu Yan and the others knew that they have arrived at their destination. Oh, when Wu Yan and the others got closer, Klein immediately noticed their arrival and laughed out loud. They're here. The model family is finally here. Wu Yan and Asuna grinned at each other. They accepted Klein's praise as a model family. They quickened their steps as they walked up to them. It's been a while, you're still as carefree as ever. Wu Yan shook his head and looked at Klein mockingly. Klein didn't care at all. It's been a while, but the Fey swordsman has always been active in the news. Suda, who was with Klein, nodded and said with admiration, but I didn't expect you to clear the 96th and 97th floors in just 1 month. You really are the strongest player in the game. I was just lucky. I happened to come across the room of the boss and killed it on the way. Agile's mouth twitched, and he slapped his smooth forehead. You're probably the only person in SAO who can say that you killed the boss room so easily. Yo, you guys are here. Wu Yan, Asuna, Yui, Klein, Suda, and Agile all turned around and looked at the source of the voice. They saw Kirito in a white suit walking out from a corner under a tree. He looked at Wu Yan and smiled. If you came any later, I wouldn't have let you in, well. Wu Yan shrugged. Let's see if someone can stop me. Kirito pursed his lips in boredom. Asuna took Yui and stepped forward. Kirito-kun, congratulations. After saying that, Yui handed a gift box to Kirito. Uncle Kirito, congratulations, this is our gift to you. Oh. Kirito took the box in surprise and patted Yui's head. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, if Kirito knew that the gift box was filled with fresh fish, and it was even placed together with a piece of clothing, what would he think? Well, since they're in SAO, the clothes won't be stained and the fish won't stink, so it shouldn't matter. Gift? Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind Kirito and snatched the gift box from his hand. The person looked at it with interest. A gift from you guys? I'm looking forward to it. Liz. Asuna put her hands on her waist and looked at Liz, who's also wearing a white suit. Today is your wedding ceremony, mind your image. It's fine, it's fine. Liz waved her hand. We're all friends here, I don't need to be so careful. You. Asuna didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Liz. Sachi, Cheyenne, and Silica ran over and stared at Liz while panting. The guests over there are waiting for you to entertain them, don't run around. Ahaha. Liz scratched her cheeks embarrassedly and retorted. I'm entertaining guests right now. Look, Asuna and the others are here. Oni-san, you guys are here. Sachi smiled politely. She looked down at Yui and squatted down. Yui-chan, you're here too? Yes. Yes, yes. Yui nodded. Yui wants to watch the wedding. Actually, there's nothing much to see. Shireen, who was by the side, muttered. Yui and Asuna's wedding was fun and lively. Liz's wedding was boring. Silica recalled Wu Yan and Asuna's wedding. She nodded in agreement. Liz was annoyed by this. I'll tell you. Liz gritted her teeth. I'm getting married, how can you say something like that? Look at me. Wah. Cheyenne and Sheely screamed and quickly ran away. Liz also shouted, don't run, and chased after them. Everyone was dumbfounded. Is this a party or a wedding? Chapter 735. Liz. Asuna angrily glared at Liz, who was chasing after Cheyenne and Silica. She gritted her teeth and looked at Wu Yan for help. Wu Yan bitterly smiled. Let's go. Don't let that crazy woman fool around. It's our big day, what's the point of this? Asuna nodded. Sachi quickly said, I'll go with you. Asuna and Sachi ran to Liz's side and held her down. They kept yelling at her, making Liz angry. Wu Yan, Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile looked at each other. Wu Yan patted Kirito's shoulder and sighed in sympathy. I'm really worried about your future. Kirito smiled awkwardly. His shoulders began to droop as if he had nothing left to live for. Klein face-bombed when he saw Kirito like this. Why don't you invite more people? That way, Liz won't be so crazy. Kirito rolled his eyes and stared at Klein until Klein got goosebumps. I don't know a lot of people, and Liz only has a few friends. How can she invite so many people? Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't know a lot of people. Liz only has a few friends. How can she invite so many people? What are you talking about? Klein patted Kirito's shoulder so hard that he almost choked on his own breath. I, Klein, have a lot of connections. If you want to invite someone, just ask me. I'll make sure you'll be satisfied. Yeah. I'll be satisfied beyond belief. Kirito glanced at Klein with a half-smile. There were a lot of people at Yan's wedding last time because of you. In the end, do we know one of them? Klein's smile froze and he awkwardly turned his head away. At that time. Since Wu Yan doesn't know any of them, the task of entertaining them fell into Klein's hands. In the end, the group of people only said one thing to Wu Yan, congratulations. Agile grinned and shook his head. I knew it. Why did you have to hold a wedding? You should have saved the money. I don't know how many items you can buy with that money. It's not worth it at all. It's all because of Yen. Kirito looked at Wu Yan with resentment. Getting married is just a matter of applying and exchanging rings. In the end, Liz said, Yen held a grand wedding for Asuna. As her best friend, how can I lose to him? And in the end. Kirito turned around and looked at the man who was looking around impatiently. Asuna, Sachi, Cheyenne, Silica, and the others sighed in relief when they saw Liz's reaction. She was exasperated. In the end, it became like this, ahaha. Wu Yan laughed dryly, the corner of his lips twitched. I can't believe it's because of me, Yui, who was holding Wu Yan's hands, suddenly said. Yui thinks it's good. It's good this way. Wu Yan and the others were stunned. They looked at Yui reflexively. Yui, on the other hand, was looking at Asuna and the others. Everyone has a smile on their faces. They look so happy. Yui hugged Wu Yan's arm with both of her hands. She lifted her head and revealed a cute smile. She even closed her eyes as she giggled. Yui is happy to see everyone so happy. Yui's cute smile made Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile smile as well. Wu Yan frowned slightly. His wine-red pupils shrunk as if he thought of something. He looked at Yui thoughtfully. Wu Yan looked at Yui carefully. His lips curved into a smile. He stroked Yui's head and said softly, "If Yui is happy, Daddy and Mommy will be happy too." Yui's eyes lit up. She met Wu Yan's gaze. She nodded her head and the smile on her face became even brighter. Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile looked at each other. They saw the strange atmosphere between Wu Yan and Yui and decided to forget about it. Speaking of which, Yan, Keita's expression became serious, and his voice softened a little. During this period of time, have you discovered the room of the 98th floor's guardian boss? Everyone's expression changed when they heard Suda mention the strategy. Wu Yan shook his head helplessly. No. You know, I'm alone. Asuna is the only one who follows me when I go to the labyrinth. It's even harder to find the boss's room than it is for you guys, even if we're on the 98th floor. Aincrad was a gigantic floating city made of steel. It was shaped like a pyramid, and its surface area increased gradually from top to bottom. In other words, the first floor of Aincrad was the largest, while the 100th floor was the smallest. Similarly, the higher the floor, the smaller the area of the labyrinth. By the 98th floor, the area of the labyrinth isn't much. However, the smaller the area, the more monsters there are. The monsters in the labyrinth are grouped up and it's very difficult to clear them. Even if Wu Yan can kill these monsters in groups, it'll take him a lot of time. Even if he teamed up with Asuna, they won't be able to save much time. With such a difficult strategy, finding the boss room and recording the map will be a lot harder. In terms of difficulty, it's not much different from the labyrinth on the lower floors. That's why, with only 2 people, it's hard for Wu Yan to find the boss's room. He only ran into it by chance on the 96th and 97th floors. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead and looked at Suda. Why are you suddenly asking about the boss room? Suda lowered his head. Kirito, Klein, and Agile seemed to know the reason as well. Their expressions turned heavy, which made Wu Yan frown. Did something happen? Kirito and the others were silent. After a while, Suda said, recently, the clearers have been in a bad situation. Clearers? Ah. Klein closed his eyes and shook his head. You don't know, but recently, almost 10% of the clearers died in the labyrinth area. Wah. Wu Yan inhaled a breath of cold air. How is that possible? I've been to the labyrinth area, the monsters there are strong, but it shouldn't be strong enough to kill so many of the clearers, right? So many of them died, is there a trap? No, that's not it. Agile smiled bitterly. Then is there a certain death setting? Or is there another powerful monster in the labyrinth area? No, that's not it. Suda gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, there are no traps, no certain death settings, and no unusually powerful monsters. The labyrinth area is still the same as before. Other than the map being different and the location of the boss room being different, the monsters and safe areas are all normal. Normal? Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and looked at Kirito and the others seriously. If that's the case, why are there still so many deaths? Let me explain. Kirito took a deep breath and said. To be honest, the clearers should be blamed for this. Wu Yan frowned and didn't say anything. He waited for Kirito to continue. As of now, Aincrad has already reached the 98th floor. There are only 3 floors left to complete the dungeon, including the 98th floor. As long as they can clear those 3 floors and kill the boss on the 100th floor, SAO will come to an end, and the players who are trapped here will be able to leave this world of death. By then, Wu Yan's mission will be complete. No matter what happens to the clearers, he has to be careful. After all, the final boss of Aincrad's 100th floor is inside. Chapter 736. As the topic of conversation unfolded, the atmosphere began to become more and more solemn. Right now, Aincrad's raid is nearing its end. Kirito's eyes were filled with hope when he said this. Not only Kirito, but Klein, Agile, and Suda also had the same feeling. The 4 of them didn't dislike this world, but they didn't like it either. They wanted to leave this world as soon as possible. In Sao, except for Wu Yan, everyone wants to leave this world. Who would like to live in a world where their life could be in danger at any time? Including Asuna. Asuna has been living a blissful life ever since she got married to Wu Yan. However, Asuna didn't want to stay in this world at all. Even though this world brought her many unforgettable memories, she still wanted to go back to the real world with her beloved husband and adorable daughter. After all, Sao is just a game world, there's no sense of belonging in it. People like Wu Yan who's been traveling around the dungeons don't care about this world, but for others, being in a world that doesn't belong to them, everything in front of them is fake, and only death is real, no one can bear it. Wu Yan could empathize with their feelings. He saw the same kind of hope in Asuna's eyes more than once. He didn't feel anything wrong with it. However, he didn't expect the deaths of 10% of the clearers to be related to this kind of hope. But Kirito's tone changed. His expression became bitter. As more and more floors were cleared, the clearers became more and more anxious, and now, the clearers are getting more and more anxious. Now, there are only 3 floors left. Once they've cleared the floors, the clearers will be truly liberated and return to the real world. Because of this, the clearers are showing signs of going crazy. In order to return to the real world as soon as possible, some clearers even formed teams in private and went to the labyrinth area without the consent of others. Hearing this, Wu Yan's face darkened. It's understandable that the clearers became anxious when their hope was about to arrive. After all, the earlier the clearers progressed, the faster the clearers progressed. The earlier the day of clearing the dungeon, the closer it would be to the day of leaving. But in this kind of mood, rashly clearing the dungeon would only result in more losses than gains. True enough. Kirito's words confirmed Wu Yan's thoughts. It wouldn't be a big problem if they just formed a team to raid the labyrinth. The problem is the players who are willing to form a team. It's all because of those players who are eager to clear the dungeon. As a result, they're too impatient when facing the monsters in the labyrinth. They didn't consider the relationship between formation, support, and combat power. They lack strategy and only know how to reduce the monster's HP. Kirito didn't say anything else, but everyone understood what he meant. It's like when a player is fighting against a boss in a video game. When the boss's HP is down to the last bar, the average player will start to get anxious. In this kind of situation, the player will usually use the simplest way to solve the problem. For example, rushing forward to clear the boss's HP as soon as possible. For example, during the boss battle on the first floor, a player named Diavel died trying to get the last hit on the boss. Originally, if the clearers kept going like that, they would have won, but in the end, the tables turned. Because the boss is still a boss, if you fight it head-on, you won't have to think about whether the clearers have more HP or the boss has more HP. That's the situation for the clearers who are eager to clear the labyrinth. Although their opponent isn't the boss, as mentioned earlier, the size of the labyrinth will shrink after reaching the 98th floor. The number of monsters will increase and the density will increase. If a clearers impatiently try to kill a monster by attrition, will they have enough HP to resist the monsters around them? They might be able to resist 1 monster, but what about 2? 3? A group? Of course, if the clearers level is higher than the monsters, they can do whatever they want, but the problem is, the monsters on the 98th floor are almost as strong as the clearers in terms of level and strength. Wu Yan bitterly smiled and sighed in his heart. He originally thought that Heathcliff was the one behind the clearer's sudden change, but who would have thought that it's actually the clearer's own fault? What about now? What's the situation with the clearers? What else can they do? They're still the same. Klein gritted his teeth in anger. Even if the clearers' deaths reminded them not to be too anxious, some of them still couldn't hold themselves back when the hope of clearing the labyrinth was right in front of them. They're like idiots, they know that it's not right to be impatient, but they still insist on going deeper. They're just a bunch of idiots. That's not all. Agile said in a deep voice, there's another group of clearers who didn't want to risk their lives, so they didn't pay attention to the monsters in the labyrinth and instead searched for the boss room. These clearers didn't die because they ran around randomly and attracted too many monsters, but after a while, they realized that their level couldn't keep up with the frontline clearers anymore. In order to catch up with the frontline clearers, these clearers became impatient and blindly leveled up in the labyrinth. Sutta raised his head and looked at the sky. Basically, that's how 10% of the clearers died. That's stupid. Wu Yan commented. Why should they be impatient? It can't be helped. Kirito said in a serious tone. After all, hope is right in front of them. Wu Yan shook his head and stopped talking about this. What about Heathcliff? Him? Kirito, Sutta, Klein, and Agile shook their heads and sighed. He's not in a good situation either. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Some of the clearers are getting impatient, but they don't dare to enter the labyrinth because of the 10% death rate. They've already banded together and protested against Heathcliff. Sutta said in a serious tone, they want the clearers to speed up the process and find the boss room as soon as possible so that they can leave this world as soon as possible. A bunch of idiots. Klein cursed. They don't have the guts to go, but they're forcing others to follow them. Do they want all the clearers to die before they're satisfied? What did Heathcliff say? Wu Yan looked at Kirito. Delay. Delay as much as possible. Kirito said, that's the only way out of this situation. Wu Yan lowered his head, but after a while, he suddenly looked up. What do you guys say? Kirito, Sutta, Klein, and Agile were stunned. Seeing them like this, Wu Yan chuckled as if he already expected this. You guys didn't think too much about it. Under Heathcliff's leadership, you've already gotten used to relying on him. Wu Yan put on a serious face and he emphasized each and every word. Listen up, you four, you need to seriously think about your strategy from now on. Otherwise, when Heathcliff suddenly disappears one day, the clearers will become a pile of loose sand and be at the mercy of others. It'll be impossible to completely clear the dungeon. Wu Yan grabbed Yui's hand and they walked towards Asuna's direction. The four of them were left in a daze, lost in their own thoughts. Chapter 737. In the end, Kirito and Liz's wedding came to an end amidst everyone's joyful celebration and fun. Kirito, Klein, Sutta, and Agile returned to normal after listening to Wu Yan's words. Perhaps they didn't want to talk about such heavy topics since today is Kirito's big day. However, Wu Yan could see that Kirito, Klein, Sutta, and Agile's eyes have changed a little. They looked more energetic than before. At this point, Wu Yan knew that the four of them had taken his words to heart. After today, the atmosphere of the clearers should change a little. After all, only a small portion of the clearers are stupid enough to rush to their deaths, and most of them are already dead. Even if the rest of the clearers are anxious, they'll still follow the rules. At the very least, they'll listen to other people's words. In the end, the main reason why things got to this point was that Heathcliff was only the clearers leader, not the clearers leader. There were also moonlit black cats and Furinkazan in the clearers, not just Knights of the Blood, but also moonlit black cats and Furinkazan. Their real leaders are Klein and Sutta. Normally, they'll listen to Heathcliff's orders since they're also clearers, but they won't obey him. That's why when something like this happens, the clearers will rebel and go against the higher-ups. This is also one of the reasons why Wu Yan warned Kirito and the others before. While Aincrad is about to be completely cleared, Kirito, Klein, Sutta, and Agile are also a little anxious. Of course, they weren't stupid enough to throw their lives away like those idiots. They put all their focus on the clearers to the point that they didn't even manage their own guild. As a result, Heathcliff was the only one in charge of the clearers. That's why so many clearers went to Heathcliff for help, mostly because no one was paying attention to them anymore. With this reminder, with Klein and Sutta's personalities, they should start to realize that something was wrong with them and adjust their state of mind. This way, they would be able to better conquer the remaining 3 floors. What's more, Wu Yan isn't being an alarmist. He knew that Heathcliff was Kayaba Akihiko from the very beginning. He also knew that the boss of the 100th floor of Aincrad was Heathcliff himself. In other words, just as Wu Yan said, Heathcliff will still lead the clearers to clear Aincrad's 98th and 99th floors, but when they reach the 100th floor, Heathcliff will really turn on them. At that time, without Heathcliff's leadership, the clearers will definitely fall into chaos. Wu Yan is also giving Kirito and the others a heads up. At least, Klein and Sutta will have a say in the clearers. That way, when Heathcliff turns on them, the clearers won't be caught off guard, they won't lose their leader and be destroyed. In fact, the best way is to let Asuna return to the clearers. That way, all the problems will be solved. With Asuna's reputation in the clearers, if she stands up for the clearers, the effect will be no less than Heathcliff's and the chaos in the clearers will be quelled. However, Wu Yan doesn't want to drag Asuna into that whirlpool again. It wasn't easy for him to live a peaceful life where he could see Asuna smile every day. Wu Yan didn't want Asuna to go back to that place where she's not happy at all. Plus, a man is more than enough when it comes to fighting for the sake of success. In any case, today's wedding was considered a perfect process. When night fell, the curtain fell and the wedding ended. As for the conversation between Wu Yan, Kirito, Klein, Sutta, and Agile, it's just a small interlude. Aincrad, 22nd floor. Phew, Wu Yan laid down on the sofa with one hand on his forehead. He looked like he had no strength left in him. I'm so tired, don't lie down as soon as you come back. Asuna pouted, but Wu Yan only smiled bitterly. I don't want to, but my head feels heavy and uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? Asuna frowned and sat down beside Wu Yan. She touched his cheek and noticed that Wu Yan was indeed uncomfortable. She couldn't help but worry. Are you okay? Are you feeling unwell? Yui, who had already closed the door, ran over to the sofa and said to Asuna, Dad, he drank. Drank? Asuna paused and looked at Wu Yan. Her chestnut-colored eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. You drank? I can't help it. Wu Yan rubbed his temples and patted his head. It's all because of Klein and Agile, those two bastards. They forced me to drink with them. I thought everyone was having a good time today, so I decided to drink with them. Who would have thought that drinking in SAO would give me a hangover? I'm not drunk yet, humph. Asuna snorted and turned her head away. Why did you drink so much when you don't know how to drink? You reap what you sow. Wu Yan twitched the corner of his mouth. I'm one of the better ones. Kirito is the worse one. He's still underage and Klein forced him to drink twice as much as me with the excuse that this is a game. I'm afraid he's going to fall asleep tonight or he's going to do something to Liz under the influence of alcohol. Asuna blushed when she heard Wu Yan's words. Yui blinked and curiously looked at Asuna. Mom, what's that? What's Uncle Kirito going to do with Aunt Liz? And nothing. Asuna laughed awkwardly and slapped Wu Yan's stomach. It was so painful that Wu Yan almost jumped up. Don't be a bad influence on your child. Okay. It's my fault. Wu Yan smiled apologetically, indicating that he won't do it again. However, Yui didn't give up and she kept on asking. Hey, what's that? Yui wants to know. That. Asuna's mouth twitched. She pointed at Wu Yan helplessly. Go ask your dad. No way. Wu Yan wanted to cry but no tears came out. Yui blinked and turned to look at Wu Yan. She stared at Wu Yan with her big bright eyes. Combined with that cute little face of hers, Wu Yan almost flipped over from how cute she is. Dad, what's that? Wu Yan smiled awkwardly and patted Yui's head. He pretended to be serious and said. Don't ask questions like that. Oh. Yui answered in a muffled voice and lay down beside Wu Yan. Asuna glared at Wu Yan and stood up angrily. Seriously, we didn't even drink when we got married. What should we do now that we're this drunk? There's no item in SAO that can help us sober up, although there's no item that can help us sober up. Wu Yan sighed. But this kind of dizziness or sleep should be categorized as an abnormal state. Let's try an item that can remove abnormal states. Asuna pondered for a moment and nodded. She turned around and walked into the kitchen. Yui, please take care of Dad. Okay, Yui became energetic again. She stood up and hugged Wu Yan's arm. She looked at him with a smile and let Wu Yan pinch her cheeks. Wu Yan looked at Yui's smiling face and thought about something. Although Yui's behavior is the same as before, during Kirito's wedding, Yui's words were normal but strange at the same time. It aroused Wu Yan's suspicion. Should I talk to Yui about it? Chapter 738. Yui. It's time to sleep. Yes, Yui, who was sitting on the sofa, responded loudly. She jumped to the ground, but just as she was about to rush into her room, she stopped, hesitated for a moment, then turned around. Yui looked at Wu Yan, who was sitting in front of her, and her eyes were filled with hope. Hey, Daddy. Yui leaned over and jumped into Wu Yan's arms. Can I sleep with Mommy and Daddy tonight? Wu Yan and Asuna looked at each other with a strange expression. It's not that Yui's request is unreasonable or strange. Yui has been living alone in her room since a year ago. She didn't ask to sleep with Wu Yan and Asuna, but Yui is still a child. It's normal for her to ask for such a thing. The reason why the two of them had a strange expression is because they remembered the reason why they gave Yui a room alone. To be more precise, it's because of Wu Yan. As an energetic young man, Wu Yan spent his first 2 years in SAO in agony. Every night he spent in SAO was filled with agony. His wives weren't around, so he couldn't have sex with them. Wu Yan couldn't stand it. Although a true ancestor's body is immortal, if he continues to hold it in, even if his body doesn't have any problems, his mind will. At least, Wu Yan was very irritable every night. Fortunately, God was kind to him and sent Asuna to his side, giving Wu Yan a chance to have sex again. In addition, the two of them were married, so it was even more justifiable for them to do what they loved. Dry wood met a raging fire. Of course, he wants to have fun every night. Yui, who was sleeping with Wu Yan and Asuna, was taken aback. Because of her father's evil thoughts, she slept alone in her own room. He didn't have a choice. With such a cute loli by his side, Wu Yan couldn't possibly turn her down. Even if he wanted to, Asuna wouldn't listen to him no matter what. He had no choice but to do so. He can't just let Yui sleep with him. Then he'll be the devil's father. With that thought in mind, Wu Yan could only mutter, Amitba, 3,655 times before he tidied up a beautiful room for Yui to satisfy his evil thoughts. Yui was very obedient. Although she was a little unwilling at first, she seemed to have understood that her parents had something they couldn't say, so she obediently listened to them. In the past year, Yui didn't mention that she wanted to sleep in the same room with Wu Yan and Asuna. It's like she got used to it. Until now. That's why the two of them had strange expressions on their faces. Thinking about the reason why he let Yui sleep in the same room as him, Wu Yan was embarrassed. Asuna's cheeks and ears turned red. However, Yui, who buried her head in Wu Yan's arms, didn't notice it. She just quietly looked at Wu Yan's wine-red eyes. Her face was full of expectation. Looking at Yui's expectant expression, even if Wu Yan had evil thoughts, he couldn't bear to refuse. It's just one night anyway. He's already endured 2 years, so why would he care about one night? Okay, Wu Yan hugged Yui and said with a smile, Mom and Dad will accompany you tonight. Yui immediately showed a big smile and threw herself into Wu Yan's arms. She rubbed against his chest with indescribable happiness. Asuna, who was blushing, couldn't help but smile. The door opened quickly. Yui was the first to rush in. She jumped onto the bed and buried herself in the quilt. She stuck her head out and waved at Wu Yan and Asuna. Dad. Mom. Come here. Coming. Coming. Wu Yan shook his head and laughed. He and Asuna slept next to Yui and poked her cheeks. How old are you? Stop acting like a spoiled child. Yui wrinkled her nose and held Wu Yan and Asuna's hands. Yui just wants to sleep with Mom and Dad, humph. Asuna narrowed her eyes and held Yui in her arms. She glanced at Wu Yan. Don't bully children. Wu Yan was speechless. I didn't bully. Asuna turned a deaf ear and looked down at Yui. She patted her back. All right, let's sleep. Yui nodded and yawned. She closed her eyes and fell into a deep slumber. Wu Yan and Asuna didn't sleep. They quietly watched Yui sleep. It was as if they were afraid that she would wake up from a nightmare and couldn't find anyone to rely on. They smiled and their eyes softened. Asuna helped Yui tidy up her bangs. Her chestnut-colored eyes were filled with nostalgia. I remember the first time I met Yui. She was just like this, sleeping quietly. Asuna looked at Wu Yan. How long has it been since I saw Yui's sleeping face? It hasn't been that long. Wu Yan didn't move his eyes away from Yui. I see it almost every night. Asuna was stunned. Almost every night? Yeah. What's wrong? Wu Yan said matter-of-factly. Yui sleeps in her own room, so of course she's worried. Every night before she goes to bed, I go to her room to check on her. You don't know how obedient she is, she doesn't even kick her blanket away. Asuna frowned when she heard Wu Yan's words. She stared at Wu Yan with dissatisfaction. Aren't you a little too cunning? It was Wu Yan's turn to be stunned. Why do you say that? I can't believe you did this behind my back. Asuna muttered. I only care about being a good father. You make it sound like I'm not a good father, I can't help it. Wu Yan grinned. Seeing how tired you are every night, I can't bear to wake you up, how dare you? The look in Asuna's eyes became dangerous. In the end, you were the one who suggested sending Yui to another room. That's why I haven't seen her sleeping face for so long. It's all your fault. How can you say that? Wu Yan retorted. Children need to be independent. What's wrong with giving them some privacy? Asuna gritted her teeth. Her teeth were chattering loudly. She was obviously annoyed. He only let Yui sleep in the same room as him to satisfy his own evil desires. Now he's talking about it in such a righteous manner. How shameless, that's enough. Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat when he saw Asuna looking like she wanted to take a bite out of him. Only he knew how sharp Asuna's teeth are. She had bitten him many times over the past year. If this wasn't a game, he would have become a celebrity by now. Wu Yan quickly tried to calm her down. Don't go overboard. The child is still sleeping. Don't wake her up, don't make it sound like I don't care about the child. Asuna's voice softened. She glanced at Yui and said to Wu Yan in a serious tone. From now on, when you visit Yui at night, you must call me along. Huh? You're not allowed to. Asuna glared at him and said in an unquestionable tone. Did you hear me? Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He saw the determination on Asuna's face. He knew Asuna was jealous. But whether she's jealous of herself or her child remains to be seen. Fine, fine. Wu Yan rolled his eyes at Asuna. Fine, 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 Asuna pouted and placed her head on top of Yui's head. She ignored Wu Yan. Her eyelids fluttered and slowly closed. Wu Yan laughed and shook his head. He gently pulled Asuna and Yui into his arms and closed his eyes. Not long after, 3 very even breaths began to reverberate throughout the entire room. After a long time, Yui, who was sleeping in the middle, suddenly opened her eyes. Chapter 739. His eyes seemed to be able to speak as they flashed in the dark room. They were like stars in the night sky, causing ripples to appear in the warm night sky due to the family of 3 sleeping together in harmony. Yui slowly opened her eyes. She no longer had the sleepiness she had before. It's obvious that Yui didn't fall asleep from the beginning to the end. Yui turned her head to look at Wu Yan and Asuna. She looked at Wu Yan and Asuna with a dazed expression. She heard everything that was said just now. Yui gently broke free from Wu Yan and Asuna's arms. She sat up on the bed and looked at her parents. She reached out her hand as if she wanted to touch them, but she was a little timid. Like she got an electric shock, she reached out, then pulled back, then reached out, then pulled back again. She kept repeating this action. Her lively and cute little face is now filled with sadness. In the end, Yui didn't have the courage to stretch her hand out. She slowly retracted her hand and said something in an inaudible voice. The next moment, she actually floated up from the bed. Yui flew above the bed like a fairy. She hovered there for a while before quietly flying to the side of the bed. Her movements were very careful. When she landed, she slowed down as if she was afraid that she would wake Wu Yan and Asuna up if she made the slightest noise. Dad. Mom. Yui's eyes trembled. Her gaze had been fixed on the two people on the bed ever since she landed, and the light in her eyes gradually dimmed. Droplets of water began to appear, scaring Yui. Yui quickly wiped her eyes. She turned around. She looked at Wu Yan and Asuna one last time and walked out of the room without hesitation. She was afraid. She was afraid that she would look at them one more time. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Yui opened the door and walked out. She didn't turn on the lights in the living room. She walked to the window in the dark and pushed it open. Then, she walked out of the balcony. The forest at night is very quiet. It's so quiet that not a single sound can be heard. Not far away, the surface of the lake is rippling. Little arcs of light reflected off the surface of the lake, creating a beautiful scene as if the lake is glowing. The ripples are slowly moving, it's a beautiful scene. The lake is glowing, the sky is glowing, but the lake is glowing as a whole. The sky, on the other hand, is glowing little by little. The night in Sao is beautiful. This is what the 6,000 players in the game agree. Aside from some special areas, such as the snowy areas, the sky is very dark. Other than thunderstorm areas and other areas where dark clouds covered the entire night sky, anyone who could see the night sky would involuntarily gasp in admiration. Compared to the real world, Sao's night sky is filled with stars every night. They gather together and form a galaxy, crossing the dark night sky in all directions. The beautiful scenery makes it possible to see one's hand in front of one's face when there's no light at night. Some people would even be attracted by the night sky when they walk on the streets, causing them to only come back to their senses when monsters get close to them. One can only imagine how beautiful Sao's night sky is. Lifting her head to look at the beautiful starry sky and moon, this beautiful scenery that should be able to calm one's heart didn't calm Yui at all. In fact, under Yui's somewhat sad gaze, even the surrounding moonlight seems to have been infected, bringing a bit of coldness. Under the moonlight, Yui's eyes became more and more blurred. She reached out her small hand and raised it above her head. She looked at the moon as if she wanted to grab it. Only a sentence filled with confusion echoed in the air. What should I do? At this time, a pair of hands suddenly stretched out from behind Yui and wrapped around her, lifting her up. Yui was shocked, but before she could react, a warm embrace wrapped around her small body. To Yui, this embrace was extremely familiar because she would stay in this embrace for a period of time every day. It was the same just now. In addition, in Sao, if the owner of the house doesn't allow someone to enter the house, no one can enter the house. The only person who can hold me is Papa. The person who appeared behind Yui and hugged her is Wu Yan. Yui didn't know when he woke up, but she didn't know when he came here. However, Yui didn't feel relieved when she recognized the person. Instead, she panicked even more. She looked up and saw Wu Yan smiling at her. She felt a little uneasy. Papa. You're naughty. Yui, Wu Yan hugged Yui's back and hugged her again. He stood up and patted her little head with his free hand. It's so late and you're still awake, this isn't what a good child should do. Yui opened her mouth, she couldn't say a word for a long time. Wu Yan didn't say anything, he hugged Yui and looked up at the night sky. Yui looked up too. The moonlight was still as bright as ever, illuminating everything here. The moon was slowly drifting in another direction at a speed visible to the naked eye, carrying the moonlight and starlight with it. There was not a trace of sound as it drifted away, signifying the passage of time. Wu Yan and Yui looked at this scene, they didn't say a word. Yui didn't know how to explain it, Wu Yan seemed to be waiting for something. After a long time, Jay lowered her head and said in a low voice. Why, Hearing Yui's voice, Wu Yan finally retracted his gaze from the night sky and looked at Yui. It's as if he can see through her heart. I should be the one who said that, right? Yui fell silent, and the atmosphere fell into silence once again. Seeing this, Wu Yan sighed and said something that surprised Yui. Yui. Wu Yan said in an unknown tone. Have you recovered your memory? Hearing this, Yui lowered her head even more. The bangs on her forehead covered her face. It's hard to see her expression. Wu Yan didn't rush her, he just smiled faintly and looked at Yui, waiting for her answer. Even with her head lowered, Yui could guess that Wu Yan was looking at her. A pair of small hands tightly grabbed Wu Yan's clothes, her red lips slightly opened. I remember everything. A pair of big eyes fell on Wu Yan's face. Yui's eyes were a bit sad, but when she saw Wu Yan's gentle smile, Yui's eyes brightened up a bit. She seemed to have gained a lot of courage. She summoned her courage and spoke slowly. Actually, I'm not human. The words coming out of Yui's mouth are enough to stun an ignorant person. They might even throw Yui away in shock. Yui was also waiting for Wu Yan's reaction when he heard this. To her surprise, after hearing her words, Wu Yan's expression didn't change at all, even the smile on his face was still as gentle as ever. Yui thought Wu Yan didn't believe her, she couldn't help but say. I'm not lying, it's all true. Hearing this, Wu Yan's expression didn't change at all. He hugged Yui tightly and rested his face on her head. His wine-red eyes looked straight at the sky. I already knew. Yui's body shook. Chapter 740. I already knew. His voice clearly echoed in Ju Yi's ears, causing her originally uneasy heart to immediately become chaotic. However, before Ju Yi could say anything, the following words caused her to be completely focused. SAO. Full name, SAO. This game is controlled by a huge system. Yui gritted her teeth and she lowered her head again. She listened to Wu Yan reciting what she was supposed to say in an ethereal tone. Her mind is in a mess. The system is called Cardinal. It's a system that doesn't need human maintenance. It has a huge computing power. It can adjust the balance of SAO based on its own judgment. Whether it's the AI of monsters, NPCs, items, or equipment, it's all controlled by a group of programs controlled by Cardinal, including the treatment of abnormal mental states. Wu Yan could feel Yui's body trembling. He looked straight at Yui's face and smiled bitterly. Yui, you're an AI, a program used to provide mental support, right? Yui raised her head and looked at Wu Yan in shock. Her courage to confess to Wu Yan disappeared in an instant, only panic and helplessness remained. Why would you? Wu Yan shook his head. He didn't answer Yui's question. Instead, he looked at Yui's eyes and smiled. I knew from the very beginning. From the day I brought Yui back. From the beginning. Yui trembled in disbelief. If that's the case, then why did you bring me back? I had no choice. Wu Yan put his hand on Yui's head. He stroked her beautiful long hair. Who wouldn't help a little girl who fainted in front of them? Little girl. Yui forced a smile. She curled her body into a ball. I'm just a program. Not a little girl. Is that so? Wu Yan turned around and made Yui face the corner of the room. There were photos of himself, Asuna, Yui, Kirito, Liz, Klein, Suda, Agile, Sachi, Cheyenne, Silica, and the others. Look at those faces. Wu Yan pointed at the photos of Kirito and the others. He said to Yui, Yui, can you tell me that none of them treated you like a human? Think back to the little gifts your Uncle Kirito, Uncle Klein, Uncle Suda, Uncle Agile, and the others brought you out to play every time they came back from the labyrinth area. Auntie Liz, Auntie Sachi, Auntie Cheyenne, and Auntie Shili brought you out to play every time they visited you. Yui, can you still say that you're just a program? Yui gradually lost her mind. He seemed to have recalled that scene, but it didn't take long for him to sober up and shake his head forcefully. No. It's not like that. Everything about me is just a program. My tears are fake, my body is fake, and my emotions are fake. The feelings are also fake. How could? Wu Yan closed his eyes when he heard Yui's words. Yeah, your body is fake, your tears are fake, people in this world. Who isn't like that? Yui was stunned. Wu Yan hugged her tightly and said softly, Yui, Daddy will teach you a lesson today. In this world, everything is fake, everyone is the same, whether it's players, NPCs, or even monsters, their bodies are fake, their tears are fake. I have to say, Kayaba Akihiko's ability is superb, he can perfectly simulate these things, but no matter how good Kayaba Akihiko is, he can't recreate emotions. So, Yui, in this world, everything can be fake, but emotions can't be fake. Wu Yan smiled and pressed Yui's face against his chest. How is it? Daddy's embrace, is it warm? Yui couldn't help but nod. Wu Yan's smile became even brighter. So, Yui, do you like Daddy? Yui raised her head and looked at Wu Yan's face. The next moment, tears uncontrollably flowed down her cheeks and dripped to the ground. She clutched Wu Yan's clothes tightly and buried her head in Wu Yan's chest. Yes. Yes. Yui likes Daddy the most. And Mommy the most. Yui's cries echoed in the silent night, her tears soaked Wu Yan's clothes. Yui wants to be with Daddy and Mommy, I don't want to leave Daddy and Mommy. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from the hall and quickly arrived in front of the two of them. The figure hugged Yui. Wu Yan was shocked when he saw the figure. Asuna. Yui. Asuna's cheeks were already filled with tears. She hugged Yui's little body tightly and squeezed her into her arms. We will always be together, Mommy won't leave you. Mommy, it doesn't matter if Yui is an AI, an NPC, or a monster, it doesn't matter. Asuna smiled and cried at the same time, her arms were getting tighter and tighter. I only know that Yui is my daughter, Mommy. Yui's tears flowed freely from her beautiful eyes. She couldn't stop the tears from rolling down her cheeks. She hugged Asuna tightly and sobbed as she left the room. Yui couldn't stop the tears from rolling down her cheeks. Looking at the mother and daughter hugging each other and crying, Wu Yan didn't feel good about it. In this world, the two most important people to him are crying so hard, he's sure that no one would feel good about it. Yui seemed to have noticed the pain in Wu Yan's heart. She stopped crying and wiped her face. Her tear-stained face turned into a smile. Thank you, Daddy and Mommy, I will cherish these last moments. Last moments? Wu Yan's pupils shrunk. Last moments. Asuna's face turned pale, her eyes were filled with panic. Why? Yui's smile turned bitter, she hugged Asuna's neck. Currently, Aincrad has cleared the 98th floor with the help of the current players. As long as we clear the next 3 floors and defeat the 100th floor boss, we'll be able to clear SAO and leave this world. Yui looked at Wu Yan and Asuna, her eyes started to lose focus. 3 years ago, SAO underwent a huge change, it changed from a simple game to a game of death. Since then, the players started to feel fear, despair, and hatred. The game was filled with negative emotions. Even though the people around Daddy and Mommy started to face this world, leaving this world has become everyone's wish. Daddy, Mommy, you will leave this world sooner or later. Yui looked at Wu Yan and Asuna with longing. I'm just a program, I can't leave this world. Asuna's face turned paler and paler. She covered her mouth as she started sobbing. Wu Yan, on the other hand, laughed out loud. Yui. Wu Yan hugged Asuna and Yui, he said. Don't worry, Daddy has a way. Papa. Yui flinched. Asuna also looked at Wu Yan when she regained her senses. Yan, don't worry. Wu Yan hugged them tightly. You just need to trust me. Asuna and Yui looked at Wu Yan in silence. Then, they nodded with a firm expression. Chapter 741. The next morning, when Wu Yan woke up and walked out of his room, the first thing he saw was Asuna and Yui. They were sitting on the sofa, drinking tea, and chatting with each other. They had bright smiles on their faces and giggles could be heard from time to time. It was a harmonious scene between mother and daughter. Judging from the smiles on their faces, those who didn't know would never know that the two of them were crying their hearts out last night. Even the two of them seemed to have forgotten everything that happened last night. However, if one were to observe carefully, they would notice that the relationship between Asuna and Yui seemed to have gotten better than before. Good morning, Papa. Oh, it's too late. While Wu Yan was still immersed in the scene of two beautiful girls teasing each other, Asuna and Yui finally noticed Wu Yan's arrival. Their gazes immediately shifted to Wu Yan. However, the words that came out of their mouths were completely different. The concern and warmth in their words were exactly the same. Wu Yan's lips curved upwards. Sorry. Wu Yan waved his hand at Asuna and Yui without any sincerity. He then walked over to Asuna and sat down. Yui immediately jumped into Wu Yan's arms, causing Asuna to be dissatisfied. Oh, when are you going to change your bad habit of sleeping in? Don't even think about it. Wu Yan casually picked up a cup and drank from it. Sleeping in is a form of enjoyment for me. The happiness of sleeping in until I wake up naturally, the happiness of having a cramp in my face when I dream is something normal people can't understand. That's my cup. Asuna snatched the cup from Wu Yan's hand and placed her hands on her waist. You're so lazy, be careful that people don't like you. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and gently lifted Yui up. Hey, Yui, will you dislike Papa? As soon as he said that, Yui's little head shook like a rattle drum. Yui won't despise Daddy. But Mommy is starting to dislike Daddy. Wu Yan pretended to be sad as he patted Yui's head. In the future, we, father and daughter, will have to rely on each other. Mother is a bad person. Yui turned against her mother without hesitation. You. Asuna was furious. She looked at Wu Yan, who had a sad expression on his face, but there was a hint of pride in his eyes. She gritted her teeth for a while and her cheeks puffed up. You father and daughter are teaming up to bully me again. Mom said we bullied her, so pitiful. Yeah, why don't we forgive her? Forgive me. I am not going to talk to you anymore. Asuna angrily turned her back to Wu Yan and Yui. Seeing this, Wu Yan and Yui looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Asuna's expression softened and she revealed a smile. Scenes like this happened almost every day in the past, even when Kirito and the others came to visit. This was also the origin of the model family that Klein called them. For outsiders, there was nothing better than this scene to show the good relationship between the three of them. After bullying Asuna, Yui ran to her side and comforted her as usual. Wu Yan picked up the paper on the table and started reading. However, it didn't take long for Wu Yan to frown. The smile on his face slowly disappeared and was replaced by a serious expression. The harmonious and loving atmosphere changed because of Wu Yan's sudden change. What's wrong? Seeing the change in Wu Yan's expression, Asuna also stopped smiling. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and put down the paper in his hand. 98th floor, cleared. Cleared? Asuna was startled for a second. She didn't feel relieved at all. Isn't that a good thing? Wu Yan looked at Asuna and shook his head. It's supposed to be a good thing. Wu Yan didn't continue and handed the paper in his hand to Asuna. Asuna took the paper in confusion and her chestnut-colored eyes scanned the information on the paper. The next moment, her expression changed drastically. 30 clearers, half of them are dead. How is this possible? Asuna was stunned. Even if it's a floor boss, the clearers should still be safe with their current level. How? Ever since the 75th floor was cleared a year ago, it had been a long time since such a large number of casualties occurred. Except for the 76th floor where the Divine Dragon Alliance members overestimated themselves, the rest of the clearers have been very smooth. Not counting the floors that Wu Yan cleared, the clearers have cleared a total of 15 floors up to the 98th floor. But in these 15 floors, the clearers didn't have more than a single-digit number of casualties. Now, in just one floor, the clearers lost half of their 30 members. That's a total of 15 people. This kind of casualty rate is even higher than the floor boss that only appears once every 25 floors. Could it be that the 98th floor boss is as strong as the floor boss that only appears once every 25 floors? Maybe it's possible, but Wu Yan is more willing to believe that it's the clearer's fault. Deep in thought, Wu Yan recalled the conversation he had with Kirito and the others yesterday and explained it to Asuna. You're saying? Asuna was surprised, because we're about to clear the floor boss, the clearer's mental state is a bit off? That should be the case. Wu Yan closed his eyes and continued. Their impatience has reduced their combat strength by more than half. They already lost 10% of their forces in the labyrinth area. What's more, they're going up against the boss. Asuna was silent for a long time before she let out a long sigh. There are only a few floors left. Once we clear them, we can leave this world. As the victims, they've been trapped in this death game for 3 whole years. No one has suffered more than them. Now that hope is right in front of us, it's only natural that something like this would happen. Asuna took a deep breath and looked at Wu Yan. Yan, what about Kirito and the others? They're fine. Wu Yan opened his profile and clicked into his friend list. Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile's names are still lit, that's good. Asuna sighed in relief. Wu Yan looked at the interface in front of him. His expression fluctuated before he suddenly said something. Asuna, do you think it's time for us to make a move? Asuna froze and turned to look at Wu Yan. You mean? Wu Yan met Asuna's gaze. It's time for us to speed up and leave this world. Leave this world. Asuna's eyes flickered. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Then, her expression became firm as she nodded. That's right. There are only 2 floors left, we can't sit here forever. Asuna then looked at Yui in her arms. But Yui, it's okay, mommy. Yui showed an understanding smile. Yui will take care of the house and wait for mommy and daddy to come back. But, Yui isn't an immature child, she's a lot stronger than she looks. Wu Yan patted Yui's head and smiled. Plus, we have a lot of time ahead of us. Once we get back to the real world, we'll be able to live a carefree life. The real world. Asuna and Yui looked at each other and opened their mouths. They wanted to say something but they remembered what Wu Yan said last night and decided against it. All she needed to do was to believe in him. Yui, let Sachi and the others take care of her for now. Wu Yan made his decision when he saw Asuna's reluctant expression. Be a good girl and wait for us to come back, Yui, okay? Chapter 742. Aincrad, 99th floor. Early in the morning, players walked out of the teleportation gate plaza one after another. Their faces were filled with excitement as they spread out in all directions. Among the players who came to the 99th floor, some of them are top players whose levels can keep up with the rest of the players, some of them barely reached the higher floors, and some of them aren't even level 80 yet. Most of them are newbies on the 99th floor, let alone the labyrinth. They can't even get out of the wilderness. However, this did not diminish the eagerness in their hearts. There were still players who moved over from the lower floors and wandered around the entire town. From time to time, they would glance at the stone tower stairs that reached the clouds in the distance. Their eyes were filled with hope. All they need to do is conquer that tower and they'll be able to reach the last floor of Aincrad, the 100th floor. Every player who was looking at the stairs of the stone tower had the same thought in their minds. They were extremely excited, and their eyes were filled with hope. If it weren't for the issue of combat power, perhaps all the players here would have rushed out and flattened the labyrinth area. From this point of view, these low-level players are much more self-aware than the so-called top players in the clearers. Aincrad has a total of 100 floors in the shape of a pyramid. From top to bottom, the area will gradually increase. At the 99th floor, it's actually not that big anymore. The stairs of the labyrinth area are located at the center of the 99th floor and there are only 4 towns surrounding it. Other than that, the rest of the area is the wilderness. There are only 4 towns on the 99th floor. It's easy to imagine how small the 99th floor is compared to the lower floors. Come to think of it. In the real world, a slightly bigger town would be bigger than the 99th floor, right? Meanwhile, in the town closest to the 99th floor labyrinth area. At the Teleport Gates Plaza, ding! A beautiful sound effect rang out and a ripple of light appeared in the middle of the Teleport Gates Plaza. Wu Yan and Asuna only saw a flash of light in front of their eyes and they lost their balance for a few seconds. When they regained their balance, the scene in front of them lit up again. The stone tower in the labyrinth area. It just so happened that it was imprinted in their eyes at the very first moment. The platform they're standing on is made of moist rocks. Maybe it's a rainy day on this floor. Wu Yan and Asuna stood on the platform and looked up at the towering stone tower that stretched as far as the eye can see. It was as if he was right in front of her eyes. The two of them stood there quietly, looking at the stone pagoda. Neither of them spoke. No one knew what they were thinking. Patting his cheeks, Wu Yan touched the hilt of Sky Gazer on his back. He felt much more at ease now. Let's go. Asuna came back to her senses and took a deep breath. A serious expression that hadn't appeared on her face for a long time appeared on her face. At this moment, the Ghost of Strategy, who led the Clearers and the vice leader of Knights of the Blood seemed to have returned. She had given up the title of Ghost Conqueror and the title of Knights of the Blood, but she had never given up the title of Flash. Directly to the labyrinth area? Let's go directly to the labyrinth area. Wu Yan walked down the platform. With our current level, we should be safe enough to face the monsters in the labyrinth area. If there are no accidents. Wu Yan paused and looked at Asuna. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Yui really wants to stay with you. In fact, Wu Yan already knew what Asuna's answer would be, otherwise, he wouldn't have suggested Sachi to take care of Yui. In the past, Wu Yan could use the excuse of taking care of Yui to make Asuna stay at home obediently. But now, Asuna knows Yui's true identity. She also knows that Yui isn't as naive as she looks. On the contrary, Yui, who has access to the entire SAO database, is an AI that specializes in human psychology and spirit. Yui is much more knowledgeable than the two of them. It would be strange if Asuna could stay at home after knowing Yui's ability. But Wu Yan still couldn't help but ask. Asuna glanced at Wu Yan and didn't say anything. She grabbed Wu Yan's hand and walked towards the labyrinth area. Wu Yan smiled bitterly. He was defeated by Asuna's silent action. He had no choice but to accept Asuna's domineering attitude. The labyrinth area is only one map away from the nearest town. It's not a small area, but it's not a big one either. As Wu Yan expected, the monsters in the wild are slightly weaker. Asuna won't have a problem fighting alone unless she's surrounded by a large group of monsters. However, Wu Yan has already released the Healing Fairy. Even after a year, the Healing Fairy's appearance hasn't changed at all. It can still restore 20% HP every minute. The only thing that changed is that the Healing Fairy can now heal other players. As long as the player is in Wu Yan's party, they can enjoy the healing effect of the Healing Fairy. Sometimes, the Healing Fairy can even trigger group healing. After a minute, if they're lucky, all the players in Wu Yan's party, including Wu Yan himself, will be able to restore 20% of their HP, and the chance is quite high. With the Healing Fairy, Wu Yan didn't have to worry about letting Asuna go alone. Besides, Asuna isn't weak to begin with. Although she can't walk alone in the labyrinth area, she's more than capable in the wild. Speaking of which, after reaching the 75th floor, Kirito has almost reached the limit of solo players. It's still okay in the wild, but the labyrinth area can't support solo players anymore. Putting aside the fact that the monsters were getting stronger and stronger, their attack patterns were also getting more and more complicated. The higher the floor, the smaller the map of the labyrinth area, and the denser the monsters would be. Usually, when they encountered monsters, they would come in groups of at least 2 or 3. In such a situation, moving alone would be suicidal. That's why Kirito ended his solo strategy a long time ago. Although he didn't join any guild, whenever he went to the labyrinth area to level up, he would either drag Suda and the other Moonlit Black Cats with him, or go with Klein and Furinkazan. Suda and Klein were overjoyed to have such a strong teammate join them. They would drag Kirito to the labyrinth area every now and then. If someone didn't know better, they would think that they're best friends for life. With Asuna and the healing fairy in tow, the two charged straight into the labyrinth area. It didn't take long for the entrance to the labyrinth area to appear in front of the two players and their pet. At this time, the two saw an ancient staircase extending to the entrance of the labyrinth area's stone tower. The stone on the staircase has weathered a lot. It feels like it's going to shatter into pieces if you step on it. There's an iron door at the entrance of the labyrinth area. The iron door has long decayed. The iron spikes sticking out of the door have corroded to the point that they're stuck together. They don't have any sharpness to them at all. It's as if the door has lived for thousands of years. Even if it's corroded to the point that it looks like it's made of scrap metal, it's still guarding its post and blocking players who try to enter. That's the labyrinth area. Asuna raised her head and looked at the iron door. The thought of facing the strongest monster on the 99th floor aside from the boss made her feel a little worried. Ever since she met Wu Yan, she's had this kind of worry every time she goes into the labyrinth area. It's because she's afraid that if something goes wrong, her perfect life will fall apart because of an accident. Suddenly, a large and powerful hand wrapped around Asuna's small hand. Asuna's body trembled and the worry in her heart disappeared without a trace. A smile appeared on her face. "Let's go." Wu Yan nodded with a smile. He faced forward, placed his hand on the iron door, and gave it a gentle push. Boom! After a loud bang, the heavy iron door opened with a loud bang. Chapter 743. Russell, Wu. The moment the door was opened, the sound of howling wind and howling entered their ears. Asuna's serious expression immediately crumbled and was replaced by fear. Even Wu Yan felt goosebumps all over his body. "It looks like..." Asuna gulped and hugged Wu Yan's arm. "The 99th floor's labyrinth. It doesn't look very pleasant." Wu Yan rolled his eyes at her. "Is there really a labyrinth in Aincrad that I like?" "It's not like that." Asuna turned her head away, but she couldn't help but take a peek inside the labyrinth. "It's just, here, oh." Wu Yan blinked and looked at Asuna with a smile. "Asuna, you're not scared, are you?" "Ahaha. Ahahaha." Asuna forced a smile, her eyes started to wander. How is that possible? Why would I be scared?" At this moment, another gust of wind blew and hit the two at the door. Asuna screamed and hugged Wu Yan's arm even tighter. Wu Yan was speechless. "Why don't you go back and accompany Yui?" "No way." Asuna refused without hesitation. She glared at Wu Yan with tears in her eyes. "Isn't it just a labyrinth? Even if there's something strange, it's just some mental-type monsters." "Yes. That's right." Wu Yan slapped his forehead and said with a headache. "But even if it's a spirit-type monster, it's still a spirit-type monster. Aren't you scared too?" Asuna puffed up her cheeks and looked around the labyrinth with her chestnut-colored eyes. She let go of Wu Yan's arm and puffed up her chest. "What's there to be scared of? They're just monsters. It's not like I haven't seen them before." As if to boost her courage, Asuna shouted this sentence very loudly. Then, she closed her eyes. Under Wu Yan's astonished expression, he charged straight in. Wu Yan was scared out of his wits. There are countless powerful monsters in the labyrinth area. Now that they were all gathered together because of the map, what if Asuna ran into a group of monsters or a trap? Wu Yan cursed and rushed in as well. The next moment, his vision darkened and a cold wind blew on his body, causing him to shiver a bit. Fortunately, his night vision isn't bad. It didn't take him long to adjust to the darkness. He saw Asuna was still rushing into the labyrinth, and he immediately went behind her and pulled her back. "What the hell are you doing?" Wu Yan yelled. "Don't you know it's dangerous?" Only then did Asuna realize what a stupid thing she had done. Her pretty face was filled with panic. She panicked and lowered her head apologetically. I am sorry." Wu Yan couldn't vent his anger when he saw Asuna's reaction. Instead, his anger subsided bit by bit. He felt helpless. Don't be so reckless next time. Wu Yan wasn't angry anymore, but he still scolded her. Don't you know it's very worrying? Asuna stuck out her tongue. She squeezed herself into Wu Yan's embrace and acted like a spoiled child begging for forgiveness, making Wu Yan very annoyed. The light in the labyrinth area is very dim. It's so dim that it's comparable to a night without moonlight. Without good night vision, it's impossible to see what's inside. Wu Yan and Asuna's night vision isn't bad. They took some time to adjust to the darkness and looked around. They entered through the main entrance and saw a place that looked like a hall. Opening the map, Wu Yan and Asuna could only make out a vague outline of a labyrinth. The labyrinth is a spiral labyrinth that leads up to the top of the labyrinth. Of course, it's just a circular structure. They haven't walked through the labyrinth area in person, so there are no markings on the path. Wu Yan was annoyed when he saw the map. Asuna suddenly pulled Wu Yan's sleeve and pointed ahead. Not far in front of the two of them, at the entrance of the staircase, there was a large insect flying in the air. It was covered in a green carapace, and there were iron spikes on its wings. Its head was like a fly, and there was a stinger sticking out of its mouth. On top of it, there was a cold light flashing, making people's hearts tremble. That's the main monster type in the 99th floor labyrinth area? Asuna heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest. It's not a spirit-type monster. That's great, ah. Wu Yan let out a hollow laugh. This is the first time I've heard a girl say that insects are great. Asuna blushed and patted Wu Yan's shoulder. She then pulled out her rapier and said, "What do you think? Do you want to go?" "Wait, let me do it." Wu Yan grabbed Asuna's rapier and stepped forward. "We don't know the monster's attack pattern yet. Its attack power, defense, and skills haven't been confirmed yet. Let me try." Asuna pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Be careful." Wu Yan nodded and walked forward. He looked around the large insect and made sure it was alone. He then left the healing fairy beside Asuna. The monsters on the 98th floor labyrinth area can't deal much damage to Wu Yan. Based on his ability value increase, the monsters on the 99th floor shouldn't be too strong either. At least, they shouldn't be able to do much damage to him. However, ability value, attack, defense, and other ability values are just a side of the story. What really matters is the monster's attack pattern and skill type. Therefore, Wu Yan immediately activated charge. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the green beetle. Holding the heaven gazer horizontally in his hand, he pointed the tip of the sword at the green beetle. The flash of the sword's skill fluctuated, and before the green beetle could be attracted, a crushing blow suddenly fell. Bang! The green beetle was sent flying, and its HP dropped to the yellow area. Virum, its aggro was successfully attracted to Wu Yan. A ferocious hissing sound came from its hideous maw. Flapping its wings like a fly, the green-shelled insect lowered its body and charged at Wu Yan with great speed. Its stinger glowed with a golden light. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. He didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he stood up straight and rammed into the green beetle. Bang! The stinger hit Wu Yan's chest, and his HP dropped by about 10%. He couldn't help but smile. The green beetle's attack took away a little bit of his HP. Even if Asuna fought it, she wouldn't be able to do anything. However, when Wu Yan felt a numbing sensation in his body, the smile on Wu Yan's face froze. He couldn't move at all. Next to the HP bar, an abnormal status symbol appeared. It was paralysis. Virum. While Wu Yan was paralyzed, the green beetle continued to stab Wu Yan with its stinger. It didn't take long for it to take away another 10% of Wu Yan's HP. Asuna was shocked when she saw what happened. She raised her sword and charged at the green beetle. She used her heavy sword skill on the green beetle and knocked it back. At the same time, Wu Yan's body shook as he recovered from the numbness. His eyes flashed and he jumped in front of the green beetle. Heaven Gazer glowed with a faint blue light. Chi! The Heaven Gazer pierced through the cyan beetle's head, causing it to stop in its tracks. Its HP bar was emptied, and it shattered into pieces, filling the air with fragments. However, Wu Yan and Asuna were not happy at all. They looked at each other helplessly. Chapter 744. The green beetle's attack power was not high. Even with the effects of its skills, it only managed to reduce Wu Yan's HP by 1/10. Its normal attacks were even worse, but its defense was much higher than its attack power. From start to finish, the green beetle had to take 2 of Wu Yan's sword skills and 1 of Asuna's sword skills before its HP bar was emptied. That might not seem like a big deal, but 2 of the sword skills were used by Wu Yan. Wu Yan was a player who put all his points into strength. In terms of attack power, there was probably no one who could surpass him. Back then, when Wu Yan defeated the first floor's boss, he only used 1 sword skill to empty the boss's HP bar. When he defeated the special boss on Christmas Eve, he even used 1 sword skill to reduce the boss's HP by 1/8. That was a boss, not a normal monster. All this time, Wu Yan's attack power had been increasing as his level, equipment, and attributes increased. Under such circumstances, a monster in the labyrinth area could take 2 of his sword skills before dying. One could only imagine how strong its defense was. That was not the most important thing. In the past, Wu Yan had encountered monsters with strong defense but low attack power. He had even fought monsters with higher defense than the green beetle. What he did not expect was that the green beetle's skill had a paralyzing effect. Moreover, the first attack had already paralyzed Wu Yan. Wu Yan had specifically increased his resistance to paralysis and had even learned the paralysis skill. Even the rare paralysis item that Kuradil had painstakingly obtained could only paralyze Wu Yan for 3 seconds. Now, the skill used by a monster in the labyrinth area had paralyzed Wu Yan for nearly 3 seconds. If a normal player were to come here, once they were paralyzed, they could only wait for death. This was because the green beetle had just entered the labyrinth area and was lucky to be alone. The monsters that they would encounter next would be in groups of at least 2 or 3. Imagine a swarm of green beetles circling around you, then using their paralysis skills one after another. From the beginning to the end, you would be paralyzed on the spot until you died. How scary would that be? Wu Yan and Asuna looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Looks like we'll encounter these monsters later. I can't get hit so easily. Wu Yan pursed his lips. He touched his chest with a lingering fear. Based on what happened just now, even if Asuna did not come over, he could have recovered from the paralysis and attacked the green beetle head-on. But that was if there was only one of them. If there was a crowd. Wu Yan felt a chill down his spine when he thought about it. Asuna also shook her head with a bitter smile. There are quite a few monsters that can add effects to their skills, but those with paralysis effects are the most dangerous type of monster. Asuna looked around and said in a serious tone, if the clerics want to explore this area, they need to form a party of at least 10 people. That way, they can help each other and switch between skills when they're activated. Otherwise, if they're surrounded by monsters, then we need some capable players. We need at least 2 or 3 people. Wu Yan rubbed his chin. We need to use throwing skills to lure the monsters one by one. Then, one player will be responsible for attracting aggro and tanking all the paralysis skills. Then, the others will be responsible for healing, no matter what. Asuna glanced at Wu Yan. If you're alone, you won't be able to do it. Says who? Wu Yan puffed up his chest. That cyan beetle's paralysis skill won't be able to kill me. Even if I'm surrounded, I have a healing fairy to heal me. That cyan beetle has low attack power, even if it paralyzes me from head to toe, it won't be able to kill me, unless what? Asuna looked at Wu Yan with an annoyed expression. Wu Yan scratched his cheek in embarrassment. Unless there are more than 10 cyan beetles, there's no need for that. Asuna leaned her head in front of Wu Yan and pointed at Wu Yan's chest. As long as there are more than 4 or 5 green beetles, their paralysis skill will be able to paralyze you. Although they won't be able to clear your HP, they can keep you paralyzed. If no one comes to save you, then you can prepare to be paralyzed by those disgusting insects until you clear the game. Wu Yan smiled awkwardly and begged for mercy. Okay. It's my fault, Asuna nodded and put her hands on her hips. So, you should understand now, right? Understand? Understand? Wu Yan paused for a second and said, understand what? What? A dangerous look appeared on Asuna's face. I understand. I made the right choice by coming with you. Wu Yan's mouth twitched, he was speechless. Are you still holding a grudge against me for telling you to go home and accompany Yui? Sure enough, girls are very vengeful creatures, I understand. Wu Yan raised his hand and said weakly, it's my fault, NN. Asuna nodded her head in satisfaction. She patted Wu Yan's shoulder. It's good that you know you're wrong. Wu Yan looked away when he saw Asuna's smug face. He was afraid that if he continued to watch, he would not be able to resist the urge to punish her. Kacha. The heaven gazer sliced through the head of a green beetle. The attack power emptied the green beetle's HP bar. The green beetle let out an ear-piercing shriek as it fell to the ground. Its body exploded into pieces and a box appeared in front of Wu Yan and Asuna to calculate their loot. Wu Yan cracked his stiff neck. He checked the time, it has been about an hour since they entered the labyrinth. During this time, Wu Yan and Asuna lost at least 100 green beetles to the heaven gazer's blade. Wu Yan and Asuna felt their scalps tingling just a second ago, but now, the area is much emptier than it used to be. With Asuna's help, their progress was a lot faster. If Wu Yan came alone, he would have to expend a lot of effort to clear out the green beetles so that he wouldn't die from paralysis. Yen. Look. Asuna happily ran to Wu Yan's side and pointed at an item that just dropped. It's a rare item. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow, he looked at Asuna with a surprised look. You're pretty lucky. If you sell this item, it'll be worth at least 1,000,000 COR, I'm not selling it. Asuna put away her interface. This item is very useful in a critical moment. You're right. Wu Yan thought for a while and said, you can put it away for now. Asuna nodded without hesitation. Since they were married, it didn't matter who kept the item, they could use it whenever they wanted. Unlike other players, if they got this item, they would have to come up with a satisfactory solution even if they didn't get into a fight over it. That's why Asuna nodded without hesitation. Asuna and Asuna continued to move forward, slowly following the stairs. The dark labyrinth area was quiet, eerie, and terrifying under the chilly wind. Asuna was determined to not come here if she was alone, even if she was beaten to death. Huff, huff, the chilling wind blew past their bodies. Asuna couldn't help but lean into Wu Yan's arms. Wu Yan wanted to take care of Asuna, but he didn't know when a monster would jump out of the labyrinth. He raised his guard and looked around to give Asuna some time to rest. Woo! Suddenly, an unusual sound was emitted from a certain corner in front of them, causing the two of them to halt their footsteps. Their minds instantly became alert as they held their weapons and aimed them forward. But when they saw what was happening in the corner, their bodies froze. Asuna's pretty face turned deathly pale, without a trace of blood in it. Chapter 745. In front of him, in a corner, a black shadow suddenly flashed out from the wall. In an instant, it blended into another wall. Then, it suddenly stretched out from the other corner of the wall. It floated in the air and quietly wandered around. The shadow's body was blue in color. Its body was like a cloak that fluttered in the wind. It didn't have hands or feet. The only part of its body that wasn't covered by the blue cloak was its head. But it wasn't a human head, it was a bird's head. At this time, it was floating out from the front corner as if it didn't see anything. In the harmonious atmosphere of, you're good, I'm good, everyone, it floated past the two dumbfounded people on the spot in front of their eyes. Wu Yan and Asuna's eyes followed the movement of the shadow. They didn't come back to their senses for a long time. One of them looked at the shadow that was floating in front of them with a strange expression on his face. The other one's face gradually turned pale. Her red lips opened, closed, and closed again. Wu Yan, who saw this scene, reacted. He cursed in his heart. Asuna's mouth opened wider and wider as he covered her mouth with his hand. She was about to scream when Wu Yan stopped her from doing so. Calm down. Calm down. Asuna. Wu Yan smiled bitterly as he covered Asuna's mouth. It's just a monster, not a ghost. Just as he said that, a gust of cold wind blew past his body, causing him to tremble violently. He looked around with a guilty conscience. He smiled awkwardly. Asuna finally realized what was going on. She glanced at the shadow with a teardrop in the corner of her eye. She quickly closed her eyes and reached out her hand. She hugged Wu Yan's arm tightly. Yen. 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 Asuna didn't dare to look at the shadow anymore. She kept repeating Wu Yan's name. Her voice was full of panic, as if she was about to cry. It appeared. It really appeared. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead when he saw Asuna's terrified expression. Even if she's the legendary Flash Asuna, she's not going to be easy to deal with. Looks like she's not without weaknesses. She's still a girl after all. It's okay, don't be afraid. Wu Yan patted Asuna's back. It doesn't have a long tongue, it's not covered in blood, and it doesn't have a rotten face. It's just a cloak with a bird's head. Don't make it sound so scary. Asuna shuddered violently. It's as if she added a long tongue to the other person's heart, a body covered in blood, a face that's half rotten. She pinched the soft flesh on Wu Yan's waist, but after Wu Yan consoled her, she calmed down. She was no longer as afraid as before. She gently opened her eyes and glanced at the shadow. Why isn't it attacking us? Asuna hid behind Wu Yan. She only peeked her head out. Her face was full of fear. It should be a monster that doesn't attack. Wu Yan opened his eyes and stared blankly at the shadow that floated 2 meters away from him. I didn't expect there to be a monster that doesn't attack players in the labyrinth. I thought it only existed in the wild. Is it the only one? Asuna clutched Wu Yan's shirt tightly. Her chestnut-colored eyes showed a hint of fear. It seems like she's really afraid of spirits and other monsters. There should be more than one, right? Wu Yan looked at the walls around them. It came out from the wall just now. That's very likely. The walls around us are filled with these monsters. Hearing this, Asuna swallowed her saliva. She shrunk her body a little and moved to the side. Wu Yan found it hilarious that she moved as far away from the walls as possible. I don't think you can go up there. Wu Yan pursed his lips and pulled the heaven gazer out. Then I'll go up there. Wait. Don't leave me. Asuna grabbed Wu Yan's clothes and stopped him from going up there. Since it won't attack players, let's just go around it. No way. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He couldn't stay calm anymore. Are you not going to fight this monster anymore? What's wrong? What's wrong with that? Asuna glared at Wu Yan. Monsters like these that won't actively attack players also have a setting that will attract all the surrounding monsters once they attack. Do you want to fight a large group of shadows and green beetles alone? Yes. We cleared out all the green beetles, there shouldn't be any more. Wu Yan shook his head helplessly. He focused his attention on the walls around him. A faint green light appeared in his eyes, and the next moment, the icons representing the units appeared in his vision. There are still 3 shadows. Wu Yan turned to Asuna and said, "Let me go up there. I should be able to handle 4 shadows with my level." Wu Yan knocked Asuna's head when he saw that she wanted to say something. Look at you. You don't even have the guts to fight monsters. Who would believe that you're the one in charge of the clearers? Wu Yan faced the front and waved the hand holding the heaven gazer. I'll leave the back up to you. Seeing Wu Yan's firm expression, Asuna reluctantly let go of his hand and grabbed the hilt of her sword. Wu Yan chuckled and he took a deep breath. Whoosh! He dashed forward and appeared in front of the shadow in the blink of an eye. Then, he swung the heaven gazer at the shadow. Chi! The black greatsword sliced through the shadow's body, but Wu Yan felt like he was slicing through air. He didn't feel anything solid at all. He couldn't help but be stunned. Roar! The shadowy figure's tiny eyes flashed red as he let out a shrill roar. He swung his cloak and a pair of sharp beast claws tore through the cloak. The beast claws came out from behind the cloak and it charged at Wu Yan. Looking at the incoming shadow, Wu Yan reacted. His eyes turned cold and he waved his other hand that isn't holding a sword. A dark green needle shot out from his hand and smashed into the bird head of the shadow. Roar! The shadow screamed in pain when it was hit by the needle, and its HP dropped. Wu Yan was surprised that his attack didn't have any effect on the shadow, but he soon realized why. The head is the shadow's weakness. Roar! The shadow's HP dropped, and its red eyes became even redder. It opened its claws and turned around in the air. Its body flashed red, and it rushed at Wu Yan like a cannonball. Humph! Wu Yan clenched his fist and took out another needle. He used toss and his body flashed like a specter. The needle in his hand flashed and he left a trail of light behind him as he appeared in front of the shadow. When he was about to collide with the shadow, the needle in his hand shot out and pierced between the shadow's eyebrows. Roar! The shadow howled in pain, and its charging momentum came to a halt. Whoosh! A shiny black greatsword stabbed into the shadow's head like a thunderbolt. The shadow's head only lasted for a split second before it was pierced through. Umbra's cries came to an abrupt end. His HP bar dropped rapidly until it hit rock bottom. Bang! The shadow's body shattered like glass and melted into the surrounding space. Before Wu Yan could put away his sword, Asuna's voice came from behind him. Be careful. As soon as Asuna's voice fell, a few flying sounds came from beside Wu Yan, accompanied by a bird-like chirping sound. Chapter 746. The blue figures quickly cut through the wall and rushed over. In just a few seconds, they had spread out and surrounded Wu Yan. They circled around him at an extremely fast speed, flashing a dense number of blue figures. Pairs of eyes filled with red light flashed rapidly, drawing red lines as they stared fiercely at Wu Yan, who was standing in the middle. Wu Yan also stared ahead, trying to see the figures of the shadows clearly. GG. The three shadows emitted a GG sound from their mouths. Pairs of sharp claws also stretched out from behind their cloaks and waved in front of him. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze slightly. Now, he could confirm that the shadows had three characteristics. First, their bodies were incorporeal. No matter how they attacked their bodies, their HP would not decrease. Second, their heads were the only part that could be attacked. Moreover, it was their weak point. Even if they were hit by a pitiful throwing skill, their HP would be reduced by a considerable amount. If they were hit by a sword skill, they would be killed in one hit. Third, when a shadow died, it had the ability to attract the aggro of the surrounding monsters to the player who killed it. However, the effective range was not clear. These thoughts flashed through his mind. Wu Yan made up his mind and lowered his body slightly. Then, with a stomp of his feet, his body turned into an afterimage, and like lightning, he rushed towards one of the shadows. GG. Just as Wu Yan's body moved, a sharp cry rang out. The blue figures that were originally circling Wu Yan in a circle suddenly pounced on Wu Yan at the same time, creating a scene of countless shadows covering the sky and covering the earth, violently surging towards Wu Yan. Pooh! Wu Yan's face tensed up. His body rushed straight into the dense blue shadows. His speed was pushed to the limit. The heaven gazer in his palm was like a whip. Under Wu Yan's swing, a fierce wind blew. The sharp blade of the sword seemed to have grown eyes. The dagger pierced through the head of one of the shadows, and with a vicious twist, the shadow immediately materialized, revealing the full appearance of the shadow. The HP bar was also emptied. Sure enough, attacks aimed at the body are ineffective, while attacks aimed at the head are more lethal. With my attack power, even without using a sword skill, I can kill the shadow in one move. Asna's words. Using sword skills. You can also kill him in one move. Wu Yan grinned as his thoughts raced. He looked at the remaining afterimages with a sinister look in his eyes. Just as Wu Yan planned to quickly kill the remaining two shadows, the dense blue shadows that filled the entire space stopped pouring down. The afterimages that filled the sky gradually dissipated and the remaining two shadows appeared before Wu Yan. They retreated a distance away and quickly opened their mouths under Wu Yan's watchful gaze. As soon as they opened their mouths, the space around them started to fluctuate. A cold current descended from the sky and swept past the two shadows. After that, as the shadows were opening their mouths, the space around them started to fluctuate. As the two shadows opened their mouths, they gradually turned into a stream of black light. Wu Yan's expression changed when he saw this. Asuna, who was observing the shadow's attack pattern, couldn't help but gasp in shock. They can use a breath skill. Damn. Wu Yan muttered to himself. The characteristics of these shadows are very clear. If you don't understand their characteristics, you'll probably die without knowing why. But if you understand their characteristics, it'll be much easier to deal with them. This meant that the monsters in the labyrinth on the 99th floor were much easier to deal with compared to the monsters in the wild. The monsters in the labyrinth on the 99th floor were much easier to deal with compared to the monsters in the wild, like Asuna and Kirito. Cyan Beetle, low attack power, high defense, but can use a paralysis skill. Shadow monsters, low attack and defense, but they can nullify physical attacks. They can also use a breath skill that only super high-level monsters or even bosses can use. It seems like the 99th floor of the labyrinth is more focused on the AI of the monsters. While Wu Yan was muttering to himself, the two shadows started to use their breath skills. Two air currents filled with the smell of decay cut through the darkness and swept towards Wu Yan. Wu Yan could already smell the stench before the decaying air even got close to him. He took a step back before taking a step forward. While the air fluctuated around him, the decaying breath came right at him. He narrowed his eyes and charged at the two shadows. Twisting his body in the air, he dodged the attacks by a hair's breadth. Wu Yan lifted his head and looked at the two shadows floating in the air. His eyes flashed with a cold light and he sped up again. He disappeared from the spot, and when he reappeared, he was already behind the two shadows. Evil sword attack. A green glow flashed on the sword of Heaven Gazer, illuminating the surrounding dark space. With a tearing sound similar to cutting through gauze, the black sword carrying the green glow burst out. Like a wooden club, it viciously smashed towards the head of the shadow, directly smashing that bird-like head into smithereens. Squeak squeak. The other shadow finally realized that its companion was dead. It immediately let out a low growl and clenched its large claws, tearing apart the cloak and reaching for the stunned Wu Yan. Unfortunately, the shadow's AI was only developed for combat and did not have any intelligence. Otherwise, it would have immediately retreated when it saw the smile on Wu Yan's face. Hey! Just as the shadow's claws were about to hit Wu Yan, a chestnut-colored figure suddenly appeared behind the shadow. It raised one hand and a long sword as thin as a needle burst out with a powerful ripple. It pierced straight towards the shadow's claws. Bang! The rapier hit the shadow's beast claw. The impact sent the shadow's light body flying backwards. At the same time, Wu Yan recovered from the stun effect and his body leaned forward as he dashed forward. His right hand gripped tightly onto the Heaven Gazer and he swung it out. Crushing blow. Wu Yan bellowed. Heaven Gazer shined brightly and the next moment, it smashed into the shadow's head. Bang! A muffled explosion was heard from the top of Umbra's head. Umbra's body trembled violently as its huge head was blown apart. A line of code representing a wound appeared on its neck. Red fragments that looked like blood floated up into the air and shattered into pieces that filled the air. Yen. Asuna recovered from her stiff state. She sheathed her rapier and she jogged over to Wu Yan. Are you okay? Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and raised his head. Do you think your husband is that weak? Asuna smacked Wu Yan's chest. Stop messing around. Okay, let's stop messing around. Wu Yan grabbed Asuna's hand before she could slap him again. His expression turned serious. Asuna, did you notice something? Huh? Asuna blinked. What did you notice? Huh? Wu Yan smiled mysteriously. Open the map. Asuna nodded obediently, then she opened her map and looked at it. What she saw stunned her, she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Why is there an unrecorded map here? Huh? You too? Wu Yan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Then my guess should be correct. Guess? Yeah. Uh-huh. Wu Yan told Asuna. Didn't you notice that every time we kill a cyan beetle or shadow, the map of the labyrinth opens up a little? Asuna's eyes lit up when she heard that. You're saying, that's right. Wu Yan crossed his arms in front of his chest. Paralysis skill, breath skill. The skills of the monsters on the 99th floor are obviously stronger than the monsters themselves. This doesn't conform to SAO's unspoken rule of absolute fairness. Normally, under such circumstances, players should be given some benefits. That's why I'm guessing that killing monsters and opening up the map is a benefit for the players. In other words, Wu Yan smirked and looked at the top of the labyrinth. Kill as many monsters as you can. The boss room might be open as well. Chapter 747. The more monsters you kill, the more monsters you kill, the more maps you have in the labyrinth area. With this sentence, the monsters in the labyrinth area are facing a disaster. The buzzing sound of the cyan beetles, the squeaking sound of the shadows, a man and a woman yelling, and the sound effects of their sword skills filled the labyrinth area for a whole day. It wasn't until the sky was completely dark that the noises in the labyrinth area started to slow down a little. At this time, Wu Yan and Asuna arrived at the top of the labyrinth area. Around them, the fragments of the monsters that just died were still floating around, but the two of them ignored it and opened their personal interface to check the map. It turned out that Wu Yan's guess was spot on. The monsters in the 99th floor had their own unique characteristics. For players who are good at strategy, it's a lot easier to clear the labyrinth after understanding their attack patterns. However, for the other players, even the top players in the clearers, without a proper party, it's going to be hard to clear the labyrinth with the unique characteristics of the monsters. This situation has formed a balance. SAO has always been a game of balance, and although they don't want to admit it, they have never seen an unbalanced area before. Under such circumstances, it's okay to add some powerful skills to increase the difficulty of the labyrinth area, but it's obvious that the paralysis skill and the breath skill have already surpassed the normal difficulty. Therefore, in order to maintain balance, the monster's strength has increased, and it's harder for the players to deal with them. Naturally, the corresponding benefits will be unlocked, and the monsters will be killed and the map will be unlocked. After a day of clearing the labyrinth, Wu Yan and Asuna have already memorized 1/3 of the labyrinth's map. This is a lot faster than the previous time they were in the labyrinth. Of course, not everyone can clear the labyrinth area like Wu Yan and Asuna. If it were the clearers, they would have a hard time dealing with the paralysis skill and the breath skill, and they might even fail miserably. But for the clearers, this setting is basically non-existent. After all, the monsters aren't easy to deal with, and even if the map is unlocked after killing the monsters, the progress of clearing the labyrinth area won't be much better compared to the average labyrinth area. It can be said that this setting is specially designed for the strong players. Asuna didn't say anything, but Wu Yan was a little confused. Was this setting set from the very beginning, or did Heathcliff or Kayaba Akihiko change it later? If Heathcliff was the one who changed it, then he should know that this setting would be a godsend for him. A labyrinth wouldn't be able to stop him at all. The reason why he was weaker than the clearers in the past was because it was hard to find the boss room. Now that he had activated such a setting, wasn't it the same as giving the room to the boss of this dungeon right into his arms? Could it be that Heathcliff really want the 100th floor labyrinth? Could he want to clear the labyrinth? Heathcliff, Asuna will and Asuna will and Asuna? Then, this setting should have been set from the very beginning, otherwise, it won't be good for him if he can't figure out Heathcliff's intentions. Wu Yan shook his head. He didn't know if it's the former or the latter. He decided to stop thinking about it. After clearing the dungeon, he would have completed his quest. In this world, the only people he cared about were Asuna, Yui, Fuji, Kirito, and the others. He didn't care about the rest. It's getting dark. Wu Yan looked at the time and turned to Asuna. It's time to go back, Asuna nodded, and the two of them took out a teleportation crystal and raised it above their heads. Teleport. A flash of light enveloped the two of them, and they disappeared from the spot not long after. Aincrad, 55th floor, Auntie Sachi. Yui twisted her body uneasily and looked at Sachi, who was hugging her. Are you sure it's going to be okay? Yui-chan, you've asked me this question many times. Sachi smiled bitterly and said gently, don't worry, I promise, it'll be fine. Yeah. Yui. Shireen, who was holding a bottle of potion and fiddling with something, turned her head and said enviously, if I were your mother, I would be overjoyed. Yui is such a good girl. Silica hugged Pina tighter. Wu Yan and I-san will be so happy. Look, everyone is saying that. Sachi rubbed Yui's head. It'll be fine. Yui took a deep breath and her expression became firm. Yeah. It'll be fine. At this moment, at the door, a series of knocks sounded in everyone's ears. Hearing the knocks, the girls in the room immediately stood up. They're coming. Cheyenne shouted excitedly. She didn't even care about the potion in her hand. It must be Asuna and Yen and I-san. Silica went to the door and opened it. As expected, Wu Yen and Asuna are standing outside the door. It's already dark outside, and they're already back at home. Hey, Silica. Wu Yen waved at Silica with a smile. You're the one who opened the door. Asuna made a bet with me, Wu Yen and I-san. Silica touched her head embarrassedly. Welcome back. The strategy should be fine, right? It should be fine, right? What do you mean by should be fine? Answer me seriously. Cheyenne popped her head out from behind Silica and complained, I'm very curious about the 99th floor labyrinth. Asuna turned her head away and said seriously, Shireen-chan, don't be curious, you don't like labyrinths like that. Cheyenne didn't listen to Asuna, she was even more curious. Just as she was about to say something, Sachi dragged her to the back. That's enough, you can ask your questions later. The most important thing right now is Yui. Cheyenne and Silica's eyes lit up and they quickly moved aside. Sachi smiled and pushed Yui in front of Wu Yen and Asuna. Sachan, didn't you have something to say to Daddy and Mommy? What's the matter? Asuna squatted down and looked at Yui. What's the matter? Mommy will do my best to satisfy you. Yui calmed down and grabbed Wu Yen and Asuna's hands. Daddy. Mommy. I have something to show you. Yui dragged Wu Yen and Asuna into the house. She brought them to a table where a steaming hot dish was laid out on the table. Wu Yen scratched his cheeks and said in an uncertain tone. Cooking? Oni-san. Sachi said something shocking, I made all these dishes myself. Wu Yen and Asuna were stunned and they looked at Yui in surprise. Yui, you made all these? Yes. Yui lowered her head. Daddy and Mommy were working hard to clear the labyrinth. I wanted to help but I didn't have the ability, so, you made these dishes? Wu Yen stroked Yui's face lovingly. Asuna was touched and hugged Yui. Yui, Mommy is very happy, really? Yui raised her head and asked hopefully, will Mom and Dad like it? I like it. Of course, I like it. Wu Yen smiled and hugged Yui. As expected of my daughter. You must have put in a lot of effort to make these dishes. They must be delicious. Yui shook her head. Auntie Sachi taught me how to make these dishes. I can't make them myself. I don't have any cooking skills, so, they must be delicious. Wu Yan and Asuna said in unison. They looked at each other and smiled. Alright, let's try Yui's dishes. Hi. Chapter 748. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. During these 3 days, the clearers started to work on the 99th floor. The clearers also arrived at the 99th floor one after another. They formed a larger team and started exploring the labyrinth area with the clearers as their goal. The clearers lost 15 players in the battle to clear the 98th floor's boss. This number of casualties is enough to make the clearers tremble in fear. Because of this, the clearers were in a slump for a while. However, they didn't slack off at all in terms of clearing the boss. No matter how big the casualties were, the clearers didn't give up on clearing the floor. On the contrary, the clearers became more and more invested in the clearers. Not only did the casualties not affect them, but it also made them more determined to clear the floor. Because they don't know if they will be the next one to die if they continue like this, the hope of clearing the floor is right in front of them. 2 more floors and they will be able to return to the real world. How can they give up now? However, perhaps because of the 15 casualties, the atmosphere in the clearers has improved a lot. Not sure if it's because of the excitement, the hot-headed clearers who wanted to rush into the labyrinth area and the boss room all day have gradually calmed down. They started to accept the assignment. Of course, there are those who calmed down. Now, the chaos in the clearers has almost calmed down. This is all thanks to Suda and Klein. They kept their guild members in check and prevented the situation from getting out of hand. In short, the clearers are a group of idiots who won't shed tears until they see the coffin. They will only unwillingly stop when the coffin appears. In Klein's words, the clearers are a group of problem children. They have problems all over their bodies. Problem children with IQ comparable to children. Fortunately, everything was progressing in a good direction. Since the 99th floor isn't very big and there aren't many wild areas, the clearers have successfully explored all the wild areas and pushed into the labyrinth area. It was inevitable. The clearers were caught off guard by the cyan beetle's paralysis skill and the shadow's breath skill. Putting aside those 2 skills, the cyan beetle's defense and the shadow's illusory body were more than enough to make the clearers suffer. If it weren't for Wu Yan and Asuna sharing the information with the clearers, they wouldn't have survived. He was afraid that the clearers would suffer more casualties on the first day of entering the labyrinth. Fortunately, after the initial surprise, the clearers gradually stabilized their strategy. Although they haven't been in the labyrinth area for a long time, the information that killing monsters will open up the map didn't escape their eyes, which made the clearers very excited. In the past, finding the room of the guardian boss in the labyrinth area was the main problem for all players. Whether or not to clear a floor, exploring the labyrinth area was the first problem, the location of the guardian boss was the second problem, and the final problem was how to kill the guardian boss. Of these 3 problems, the first and third required specific planning and discussion before they could be solved. But no matter what, the initiative is in the clearers' hands. Only the second problem requires a little bit of luck, and it's the most time-consuming problem. It's easy to imagine how good it is for the clearers who are eager to clear the labyrinth area by killing monsters to open up the map, but that's the clearers' business. It's no longer important for Wu Yan because his map is already open. On the first day, Wu Yan and Asuna took down 1/3 of the labyrinth area. On the second day, they were more prepared so they managed to take down 80% of the remaining 2/3 of the labyrinth area. Today, the entire labyrinth area is visible on the map. Looking at the red dot marked in the corner of the map file, Wu Yan sighed faintly as he constantly speculated about his own luck. After killing a monster, a small portion of the labyrinth's map will be unlocked. This small portion of the map is random. In other words, it's very likely that you'll find the location of the boss's room when you kill the first monster. It's also possible that you'll find the boss's room when the last portion of the map is unlocked. Unfortunately, Wu Yan is the latter. On the other hand, Asuna was also looking at the red dot on the map. She looked at Wu Yan with a worried expression. She tugged at his sleeve and she pleaded with him in a pitiful tone. Hey, what should we do next? Do you even need to ask? Wu Yan pursed his lips and glanced at Asuna. Of course we're going to kill it. Do you want to farm insects and ghost birds here? Asuna put away her pitiful expression and pouted. I knew you'd say that. Asuna put away the map and swung her sword. Well then, let's go. Wu Yan's mouth twitched when he heard Asuna's words. He stared at her beautiful face for a long time before he finally asked. You really don't want to think about it? Asuna stepped forward without looking back and waved her hand. I didn't ask you to go back to the clearers, so don't ask me to go back either. Wu Yan's lips twitched. He wanted to say something, but when he saw Asuna's unwavering expression, he knew he couldn't just throw a meat bun at a dog. It's a one-way trip. This isn't the first time this has happened. Every time Wu Yan and Asuna stumbled upon the boss room, there would be a conversation. Wu Yan tried to persuade Asuna to go back, but Asuna refused. Asuna also tried to persuade Wu Yan to go with the clearers, but Wu Yan refused. Asuna also tried to persuade Wu Yan to go with the clearers, but Wu Yan refused. In the end, Wu Yan and Asuna went up against the boss room together. This time is no exception. They didn't need to talk to each other to know the other's choice. At the end of the day, it's just a show of mutual concern. One is worried that Wu Yan will never return, the other is worried that he won't be able to take care of his wife when the time comes. However, both of them are very stubborn. One of them would rather die than share the fruits of his labor with others, and the other would rather die than sit at home and watch the other person enter a dangerous place. Their brains are as hard as a bull's tendon. From this point of view, it's no wonder they're a married couple. Following the instructions on the map, the two of them killed all the green beetles and shadows that blocked their way as they made their way towards the boss's room. The 99th floor's labyrinth area was not large, but the density of monsters was very high. Unfortunately, it was not enough to stop the powerful couple. After 30 minutes, there was only one path left in the labyrinth area. At the end of the path, there's a familiar door, waiting for someone to open it. Standing in front of the door, Asuna turned around and fixed Wu Yan's collar. We'll succeed, right? Of course. Of course. Wu Yan reached out and hugged Asuna. Maybe Yui has already made dinner and is waiting for us to go back to eat. That's exciting. Asuna looked up at Wu Yan's face and smiled. Then, she closed her eyes. Wu Yan caressed Asuna's face, lowered his head, and kissed Asuna's lips. The two of them hugged each other in front of the boss room's door, kissing. After a while, they finally separated. Let's go. Chapter 749. Boom! The heavy door was pushed open by two hands that were completely disproportionate to the size of the door. The sound reverberated in the silent surroundings. The cold wind that was blowing all the time had already stopped, causing the atmosphere to become exceptionally heavy. When the door is fully opened, Wu Yan and Asuna looked at each other. They held their weapons and walked into the room. When they entered the room, the door behind them slammed shut. The two of them didn't look surprised at all. They didn't even have the urge to look back. They have encountered this scene many times. Ever since the 75th floor, every floor's boss room has two settings. One is the crystal nullification zone, and the other is the trap activation zone. In other words, once they stepped into the room of the boss, they would not be able to leave unless the boss died. Wu Yan and Asuna already knew about this setting. They didn't need to look back to confirm it. They stopped in their tracks and were attracted by the strange scene in front of them. In front of them, a thick black fog has shrouded the entire room. It's like a worm wriggling in the air. A few black fog-like things are floating around the fog. They look very similar to the shadows outside. The only difference is that their cloaks are black and their heads are covered in black fog. They can't see what's inside. However, on the head of the black fog, there was a pair of scarlet-red light spots that were emitting a faint glow. They flickered like eyes and surged like an evil spirit. Finally, traces of heart-wrenching screeches were emitted from the black fog. It was as though something was trapped within the black fog. It's a strange scene. Even Wu Yan has the urge to take a step back, let alone Asuna. Her serious face has collapsed. What is that? Asuna moved behind Wu Yan. She gripped her rapier so tightly that it's shaking. Where's the boss? Who knows? Wu Yan looked at the black fog that seemed to cover the sky. The already dim scene seemed to have turned even darker due to the rolling black fog. Furthermore, the strange black fog in the middle made it hard for even light to penetrate it. Wu Yan, who tried to get a better look at the situation inside, was defeated in an instant. Numerous ear-piercing screeches reverberated within the black mist. Densely packed black shadows shuttled back and forth within the black mist like demons hiding in the darkness. Their crimson-red eyes looked eerie and scary in this dark environment. Wu Yan couldn't help but curse. This Kayaba Akihiko really has a bad taste. Asuna looked timidly at the black fog hovering in the air. The scene made her scalp tingle. If she didn't know that this was the boss room and they were about to face the boss, she probably wouldn't have dared to stay here any longer. Asuna had no choice but to calm herself down. After a moment of hesitation, she asked, "What should we do? Should we go over?" Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. He pointed Heaven Gazer at the fog and held Asuna's hand. "Follow behind me, we'll walk over slowly," Asuna nodded. She let Wu Yan hold her hand and walked towards the fog with light steps. Just when the two of them were about 5 meters away from the black fog, the constantly squirming black fog suddenly paused. Immediately after, it began to churn violently. An indistinct black shadow flashed through the black fog. At the same time, a crimson blood glow surfaced from within. Traces of a strange crimson color began to fluctuate out. "Be careful." The sudden change startled Wu Yan. As soon as he reminded Wu Yan, he heard a shrill shriek. The black mist stopped moving, and after a brief moment of silence, countless black mist shadows shot out from the black mist and rained down on Wu Yan like a torrential downpour. "Yan! Back off!" Wu Yan and Asuna shrieked at the same time as they leaped back. The black shadows increased their speed and chased after them relentlessly. In an instant, they were right in front of the two retreating figures. They were about to envelop Wu Yan and Asuna. Wu Yan furrowed his brows and he clenched his fist. Heaven Gazer flashed with a dark green radiance and he swung it out. Following his movement, a strong gust of wind burst out from Heaven Gazer into the sky and blew at the black fog shadow. Whooshing noises kept ringing out as the black fog shadows were blown away by the strong wind. The black fog shadows also showed signs of retreating, but the number of black fog shadows was simply too terrifying. Therefore, there were still many black fog shadows that desperately shot down, enveloping the two of them. "There's no other way." Wu Yan stopped abruptly and steadied himself. He pulled out the elucidator from his back. "Asuna! Attack!" "Got it." Asuna immediately dashed to Wu Yan's side and saw the black shadows coming at them like a pack of wolves. The effect of sword skill flashed on their swords and they slashed at the black shadows. Bang! The sharp edge of their swords was extremely powerful. The black shadows were instantly torn apart. Wu Yan's and Asuna's faces were filled with joy, but they quickly turned gloomy again. In the blink of an eye, the black fog that had been torn apart turned into a gust of gray gas and quickly spread out. Just when the two of them thought that it would attack, it turned around and drilled into the squirming black fog. Something is wrong. Wu Yan and Asuna had the same thought. But, before they could take a closer look, the other shadowy figures started pouncing at them as well. Wu Yan quickly swung his swords. Every time he swung his swords, a black shadow would be pierced through. However, compared to the number of black shadows behind them, the black shadows were almost negligible. After killing dozens of black shadows, Wu Yan finally couldn't help but take a deep breath. On the other hand, Asuna was in a similar situation. Dozens of black shadows were pierced through by her swords, but there were still more black shadows coming at them. Over time, as the two of them continued to fight, the dark red clouds began to churn violently. As the dark clouds churned, a faint blood-red color seeped through them. It was eerie and sinister. Every time a black shadow was killed, its body would turn into gray smoke and replenish the black clouds. The blood-red color became thicker and thicker. As time passed, the black clouds began to emit an oppressive aura. As the clouds churned, shrill screams could be heard. The heaven gazer and elucidator danced in the air, cutting down the black shadows one by one. However, Wu Yan didn't feel happy at all. He frowned as a bad feeling surfaced in his heart. He waved his swords faster and faster. One after another, illusory sword shadows overlapped with each other. In an instant, a huge wave of black shadows was sliced into pieces. Taking advantage of this gap, Wu Yan lifted his head and looked at the gigantic black mist above his head. His pupils shrunk when he saw what it is. Wu Yan caught a glimpse of a 2 to 3 meter tall figure that looked like a flame within the black mist. With the replenishment of the gray mist, the figure slowly solidified into a solid form. Could it be? Suddenly, the black fog shrunk as though it had received a shock. A momentary silence also appeared in the repeatedly reverberating sharp cries. A blood glow soared within the dark black cloud layer. Faintly, a bone-chilling chewing sound was gradually being emitted from within. Wu Yan's eyes glinted when he saw this. Raising his swords, he took a step forward and charged towards the black mist. Yen! Asuna exclaimed in shock. Chapter 750. Whoosh! Wu Yan dashed towards the black clouds. Heaven gazer and elucidator danced in the air, leaving afterimages in their wake. Wherever they went, the black clouds would be sliced in half and turned into gray gas. They were absorbed into the black clouds, but they couldn't stop Wu Yan's charge. Asuna also wanted to join in the fight, but the dark shadows were entangling her so tightly that she couldn't catch up in time. She could only grit her teeth and deal with the dark shadows first. Just as Wu Yan was about to get close to the black clouds, a screeching sound came from within the clouds. Then, one of the clouds moved and a blurry giant figure came out of it. A ferocious beast claw reached out from the side of the giant figure and enlarged in Wu Yan's eyes. It's aimed at Wu Yan's chest and viciously pressed down on it. Wu Yan's eyes flashed as he stared at the ferocious beast claw coming at his chest. The elucidator that was imbued with sword light was sent flying by him and collided with the beast claw. Clang! A majestic black mist suddenly surged out of the beast's claw and intertwined with the light of the sword skill on the surface of the elucidator. They collided violently, and a series of ear-piercing, chi-chi sounds were heard. Sparks were also ignited as a result of the collision. Wu Yan's expression changed as he looked at the ferocious beast claw in front of him. He swung the heavenly gazer at the beast claw with lightning speed. It hit the beast claw with a loud bang. Dong! Roar! A deafening howl came from the giant figure. The howl drowned out the screams of the other players in the room. Wu Yan and Asuna felt dizzy when they heard the howl. Their hands stopped moving for a brief moment. The gigantic blurry figure shuddered and retracted its claw, retreating into the layers of black clouds. The elucidator, which had been locked in a stalemate with the beast claw, lost its target and slashed into the black clouds, tearing a hole in the clouds. Almost at the same time, an icon appeared on top of the black fog. At the side, there were 7 HP bars hanging high above the ground. The HP bar at the top of the 7 HP bars had already decreased by a little. They saw the icon and the HP bar of the black fog. Wu Yan and Asuna immediately understood. It's the black fog. It's the 99th floor's final boss. The final boss is a cloud? Asuna stared at the black clouds with a surprised expression on her face. She has never heard of a final boss before. How can it be in such a blurry form? Wu Yan, who was closer to the black fog, looked through the hole. His pupils shrunk and his expression changed drastically. Inside the black fog, there were countless black fog shadows that intertwined with each other like insects. It's like a box of poisonous insects. In the center of the black fog shadows, there were strands of gray gas that slowly merged together and solidified. A terrifyingly cold aura was growing in the center of the gray gas. Within the gray gas, there was a 2 to 3 meter tall ferocious figure that was moving. It's the blurry figure that fought Wu Yan just now. Wu Yan's expression darkened when he saw this. Heaven Gazer and Elucidator shone with a blinding aurora-like light. He raised the weapons above his head and slashed down on the black clouds. Boom! The black fog exploded. Blazing sparks spread out from the two black longswords. The black fog and shadows that came into contact with the longswords were cut into nothingness. The HP bar beside the black mist decreased. After Wu Yan's destruction, the dark red hue within the mist seemed to have faded a little. However, the shadows within the mist and the blurry silhouette seemed to have received some sort of provocation as they howled in a frenzied manner. Then, the black fog outside the black fog turned into sharp spikes and shot towards Wu Yan. Bang! Wu Yan was caught off guard. He was hit in the middle and his body flew backward as if he was stabbed by a spear. Yen! Asuna swung her rapier and swept away the black fog shadows. She leaped into the air and caught Wu Yan in her arms. The two of them flew back a few meters before landing on the ground. Yen! Asuna quickly helped Wu Yan up. Are you alright? I'm fine. I'm fine. Wu Yan rubbed his chest and stood up. The healing fairy flew to his side and healed him back to full health. That boss's attack pattern is too strange. Wu Yan looked up and stared at the black fog. His brows furrowed. Asuna furrowed her brows and said, "What's going on? Why is the final boss Yunruoyan? You should ask Kayaba Akihiko." Wu Yan shook his head. He took a step forward and pointed his rapier at the black fog. What we can confirm is that the black fog is the boss. Attacking the black fog will clear its HP, but attacking the black fog shadows won't do any damage to it. Moreover, once the black fog shadows die, they will condense into a stronger shadow. Asuna recalled the giant shadow that came out of the black fog and fought Wu Yan head-on. Her head started to hurt. The giant shadow was able to take Wu Yan's sword skill head-on. It's not hard to imagine how strong that giant shadow is. Moreover, there are endless black fog shadows around it. Killing them will only strengthen the giant shadow. The longer this drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for them. Fortunately, they are the ones who came here to raid the boss. If it was the clearers, their original formation would have been disrupted in an instant. For the clearers who have always relied on numbers to defeat the boss, the black fog shadows are like a natural predator. They can't win in terms of numbers against the overwhelming number of black fog shadows. In terms of strength, any one of the clearers might be able to deal with a dozen or so black fog shadows at once. But if they have to deal with a group of black fog shadows and their formation being disrupted, the consequences would be unimaginable. Wu Yan and Asuna grimaced at the thought of this. They looked up at the sky and they saw the dark clouds slowly solidifying. Wu Yan could clearly sense a tyrannical aura coming from the ghostly wails that reverberated through the air like thunder. At this moment, the black fog cloud layer had already stopped churning. However, that dark blood-red color was still seeping through. Immediately, the black fog cloud layer slowly fluctuated and actually began to swiftly scatter. It's gone. Asuna nervously held her rapier. Could it be that the boss is dead? How is that possible? Wu Yan bitterly smiled and looked up. I'm afraid the next part is going to be the hardest part. As soon as he finished his sentence, the black fog clouds that shrouded the sky dispersed most of its body, leaving only a small ball in the middle. In the area covered by the black fog clouds, a blood-red giant shadow appeared in front of Wu Yan and Asuna. Their expression turned serious. It's a figure that's about the same size as a normal person. It has hands, feet, a head, but no face. It's about 3 meters tall and its body is filled with a dark red color. It's as if it's made of fresh blood. At first glance, it's emitting a cold and tyrannical aura. Above its faceless head, a pair of red dots glowing with crimson light shot out. There was not the slightest bit of emotion that a human should have. There was only endless brutality and killing intent that could be clearly seen. It was exactly the same as the eyes of a wild wolf that had been starved for more than 10 days. Only a small cloud of black mist remained on the left side of the blood shadow's chest. It was like a heart, and the 7 HP that should have been on the blood shadow had been transferred to the blood shadow. A loud howl resounded. Chapter 751. Roar. The giant shadow raised its head and howled. Even though it had no mouth, the howl sounded as if it came from a gigantic, ferocious maw. The howl created a shockwave that swept out in all directions. Wherever the shockwave passed, the dark boss room was instantly covered in a blood-red hue. The entire room lit up as well. The blood-red hue continued to spread throughout the room. The giant shadow's howl spread to every corner of the room. It only stopped howling when the entire room was filled with blood-red hue. However, after the howl ended, the giant shadow's body seemed to have increased in size. Finally, Wu Yan and Asuna got a good look at the true form of the shadow. It's blood-red like a naked giant. However, its skin is red as if it was soaked in a pool of blood. It also has a faceless head and a pair of crimson eyes. A demon. That's the first thought that popped up in both Wu Yan and Asuna's minds when they saw the giant shadow. Asuna's face turned pale when she saw the giant shadow's hideous appearance. She couldn't help but take a step back. Her chestnut-colored eyes were filled with panic. The giant shadow's appearance is too much for a girl to bear. Wu Yan saw Asuna's reaction and stood in front of her. He pointed his heaven gazer and elucidator diagonally to the ground as if he was protecting something. Asuna's fear lessened a lot. She took a step back and stood firmly beside Wu Yan. Both of them raised their swords. "Are you okay?" Wu Yan asked softly. Asuna took a deep breath. Her expression tensed up. "Of course." Wu Yan nodded and didn't say anything else. He looked up at the giant figure in the sky. His wine-red eyes narrowed as he stared at the chest of the giant figure, at the fluctuating black clouds. "If you have the chance, attack the black mist at its chest," Wu Yan said in a serious tone. It was just one sentence, but the smart Asuna immediately understood what he meant. No matter who the boss was, whether it was the black fog or the giant shadow, the black fog was still there. Then it must be useful. Previously, the HP bar and icon only appeared when attacking the black fog cloud. Therefore, attacking the black fog cloud was definitely not a mistake. Maybe there's a weakness there. Roar. As if it could understand the conversation between the two, the giant shadow roared angrily. A blood-red aura appeared around its body and condensed into a giant sword in its hand. Roar. The giant shadow's eyes flashed red as it let out a howl from its faceless head. Its body seemed to have lost all gravity as it fell from the sky and dived towards the two on the ground. Asuna looked at the giant shadow diving towards her. Asuna took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She raised her hand, and a pink sword skill light shot out from the thin sword in her hand. "Ha!" Asuna shouted. Just as the giant shadow was about to reach her, the light on the rapier in her hand quickly condensed into one. The next moment, countless pink sword shadows poured out like raindrops, streaking across the void in front of them, leaving behind faint red marks. They were all aimed at the giant shadow. Roar. The dense pink sword shadow swept across the giant shadow's body. The giant shadow swung its giant sword. Bang 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 bang, the countless sword shadows were swept away by the giant sword. Asuna didn't even frown as she swung her sword again. This time, the sword was aimed at the black mist at the giant shadow's chest. Roar. The giant shadow seemed to be enraged by Asuna's action. Its great sword trembled violently, and with a strange sound, it suddenly flew up and hit Asuna's rapier. With a ferocious force, it viciously slammed Asuna's head. If this attack landed, Asuna's HP would be reduced by half. But Asuna didn't even look at it. She ignored the giant sword that was about to hit her head. The pink glow of her sword skill grew brighter and brighter, and the sword in her hand shot towards the giant's chest. Just as the great sword was about to hit Asuna, two gleaming longswords suddenly appeared from the side and met the great sword head-on. Clang, the two black longswords clashed with the giant sword. A gust of wind blew from the center of the three swords. Asuna's long chestnut-colored hair fluttered in the wind, and the giant sword couldn't penetrate any further. Asuna's cheeks were stinging from the gust of wind. The two long swords and the giant sword were in a stalemate. Asuna shouted again and stabbed the giant shadow's chest with even more force. Roar! The giant shadow howled again, but this time, there was a hint of pain in its voice. Before it could finish its howl, the two black longswords under the giant sword began to exert force. Clang! A crisp sound resounded in the air. The great sword was forcefully blocked by two black longswords. Following that, the sword's skill's light flashed. Following the slender swords, the great sword also struck the chest of the giant shadow. Roar, roar, roar. The giant shadow howled in pain. Its HP dropped at an unimaginable rate. Before it could retaliate, the two black longswords and the giant sword landed on its body at the same time. Bang! The giant shadow was pushed back. Asuna! Ha! Wu Yan and Asuna disappeared from where they stood. When they reappeared, they were already in front of the giant shadow. Before the giant shadow could react, the three swords sliced through space and pierced through the giant shadow's chest. The swords even pierced through the dark clouds. The giant shadow's howl turned into a blood-curdling scream. At this time, the black cloud seemed to have become its weakness. When it was hit, its HP bar kept dropping. In just a short exchange, Wu Yan and Asuna's HP bars were full, but the boss's HP bar was half gone. With the two of them working together, the giant shadow was completely defeated. The giant shadow was enraged. It dodged Asuna's attack and rushed towards Wu Yan. It was as if it knew that Wu Yan was the culprit behind its continuous attacks. However, before it could even take a few steps, Asuna appeared in front of the giant shadow again and slashed her sword at the giant shadow like rain. Bang, 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 bang. In a second, Asuna had slashed at least a dozen times, and all of them landed on the giant shadow. Unfortunately, this time, the giant shadow's HP bar was not cleared. It was only pushed back. Seeing this scene, the two immediately understood that the real boss was still the Black Fog. However, the Black Fog did not have much combat ability, so it condensed into a giant shadow and let it fight. Meanwhile, the Black Fog was inside the giant shadow and controlled the giant shadow's movements. This was the true face of the 99th floor's guardian boss. Even the Black Fog from before was used to create this giant shadow. With this information, Wu Yan and Asuna's chances of victory increased by more than half. The two flashed past each other like lightning and they locked onto the giant shadow. Wu Yan used his greatsword skills to push the giant shadow back while Asuna focused on attacking the black mist. She kept swinging her swords at the boss. Occasionally, the two of them would switch targets and switch targets. The boss's HP didn't show any signs of slowing down. In the past year, since the two of them got married, every time they entered the labyrinth area, they would form a party. They would clear maps together, level up together, and even face the boss together. Now, the two of them had reached an unimaginable level of teamwork. Chapter 752. Bang! The giant figure stomped its feet fiercely on the ground. Every time its feet landed, the ground would tremble under its huge body. After dozens of steps, the giant figure finally stabilized its body. Its faceless head lifted up, and a furious howl spread to every corner, blowing away the smoke and dust that had been stirred up. Compared to the dark shadow, Wu Yan and Asuna were in a much better state. Although their HP bars had decreased, it didn't take long for them to recover back to full health with the help of the healing fairy. After the previous jaw-dropping coordination battle, Giant Shadow's HP bar had already been reduced by a total of 6. Even though it hadn't been that long since the battle started, the intensity of the battle was no less than a large-scale raid. With the perfect coordination between the two, It wasn't hard to understand why the boss HP had been reduced to such a degree in such a short period of time. However, the battle had caused Asuna to start panting. After she calmed down, Asuna's cheeks flushed red. She looked at Wu Yan, who was standing beside her. Wu Yan nodded at Asuna when he saw her looking at him. He didn't look like he was panting at all. Instead, he looked like he was at ease. Originally, Wu Yan had no problem dealing with the dark shadow alone. Now, he had Asuna on his side. Even if Asuna wasn't as strong as Wu Yan, the two of them would be able to fight together. Their combat prowess doubled. Wu Yan had a much easier time fighting them compared to when he was alone. If Wu Yan was alone, he wouldn't have been able to deal with the dark shadow in such a short period of time. Roar! Roar! The dark shadow roared again and again. It looked at the two little people, who were half its height. The red glow in its eyes intensified and there was a hint of madness in its eyes. Wu Yan and Asuna's hearts were in their throats. The dark shadow has an invisible setting. Once the HP bar drops to red, its attack pattern will change. Even its skills and abilities will increase. Although not all dark shadow bosses have this setting, if they don't pay attention to it, it's not something to be happy about. Sure enough, under their watchful eyes, the dark shadow's heart began to emit black mist from the dark shadow's body. It floated above the dark shadow's room. In just a few moments, the dark shadow covered the entire room and emitted a chilling aura. The dark shadow was suffocating. The black fog shrouded the sky and emitted a cold aura like a tide. It formed a sea of black fog and rolled violently like a thundercloud. The giant figure flashed and jumped into the black fog, disappearing without a trace in an instant. The next moment, black fog shadows began to fly out of the black fog clouds. Just like at the beginning, they shuttled back and forth in the black fog clouds. What was shocking was that during this period of time, the HP bar that had dropped to a red state was actually slowly recovering. Looking at the dark shadow and the dark shadow's HP bar that was slowly recovering, Wu Yan and Asuna became anxious. I didn't expect the boss to have the ability to recover HP. Could it be that when its HP bar fell into a red alert state, it would return to its original form, and then come out to fight after its HP was fully recovered? And before that, it would have the shadow of the black fog to hold me back? Just as this thought surfaced in their minds, boundless black fog suddenly surged out from the black fog, densely covering the sky and covering the earth as they pounced towards the two of them, confirming their guesses. In the next moment, the black fog shadows also attacked, surrounding the two of them in the middle. Then, they formed a group and rushed down in a line. Wu Yan and Asuna raised their swords at the dark shadow boss at the same time. When the dark shadow boss was about to reach them, they swung their swords and killed all the dark shadow boss. As soon as the dark shadow boss died, its body turned into a gray mist and was sucked into the dark shadow boss. The dark shadow boss seemed to have eaten something extremely nutritious. The dark shadow boss's HP bar began to recover rapidly. Wu Yan and Asuna panicked. They quickly put away their swords and retreated to the back. Yan, we can't go on like this. Asuna gritted her teeth. With the dark shadow boss blocking us, we can't get close to it. Attacking the dark shadow boss will only increase its HP regeneration. If we don't think of a way to deal with it, I understand. Wu Yan lowered his head and pondered for a moment. He then looked up at the dark shadow boss. Asuna, open a path for me. Let me get through. Asuna hesitated for a moment. Are you sure? No problem. Wu Yan lowered his body and got into a charging stance. As long as I hit the boss with my dual sword style, the boss won't be able to last long with its remaining HP. Asuna stared at Wu Yan for a moment and nodded. I understand. Asuna charged in front of Wu Yan. She swung her rapier and the shadows in front of her cleared away the black fog. She turned the area into gray air currents. Before the gray stream could return to the dark shadow boss, Wu Yan's heavenly gazer and elucidator shone brightly. Solar eclipse, a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Like a signal, Wu Yan leaped into the air. Along with the radiance of Heaven Gazer and Elucidator, he turned into a meteor and charged into the black mist with a trail of flames behind him. Bang! Boom! Like a meteor crashing into the ocean, the dark shadow boss suddenly calmed down. Then, an earth-shattering explosion erupted from the dark shadow boss. A bright light shone from the dark shadow boss and spread out like ripples. It was as if the sun had broken through the dark clouds at the end of the night. It was like the light of a solar eclipse. The light illuminated every corner of the dark shadow boss's room. Asuna was slightly dazed by the bright light. The dark shadow boss screamed and turned into ashes. The dark shadow boss no longer condensed into gray streams. The dark shadow boss also started to dissipate. Along with it, the dark shadow boss's HP bar disappeared. When the light dimmed, the black mist condensed into a small ball and stopped moving. It trembled and broke into pieces. The crisp sound of the effect was heard and it fell apart. The dark shadow boss's room lit up again. This time, it wasn't blood red or black, but white. Wu Yan floated down from the ceiling and landed on the ground. The sword skill effect of the Heavenly Gazer and Elucidator dimmed, revealing the dark shadow boss's body. Asuna finally reacted. Her delicate body trembled as a look of ecstasy appeared on her face. She couldn't help but let out a cry of joy. We did it. Asuna ran up to Wu Yan and threw herself into Wu Yan's arms. She hugged his neck and screamed. Yan! We did it. We did it. Wu Yan hugged Asuna tightly and smiled bitterly. It's not like we've never cleared the dark shadow boss before. Why are you so happy? Asuna blinked her eyes and said pitifully, can't I? Fine. Wu Yan's smile got even more bitter. Asuna's laughter was like a chime. Chapter 753. Today, the players of Aincrad were going crazy. They were so happy that they went crazy. The 99th floor. They cleared it. There's only the 100th floor left to clear SAO and leave this world filled with death and despair. As long as they could clear the final 100th floor, the remaining 6,000 players who had survived in this world for 3 years would be able to log out and return to the real world. Even if there's only one floor left, it won't stop the players from going crazy. Players on every floor of Aincrad are celebrating and cheering for Wu Yan and Asuna, the Fey swordsmen, for clearing the 99th floor. They are also cheering for the Fey swordsmen, Wu Yan, and Asuna who cleared the 99th floor. After the wedding a year ago, Wu Yan and Asuna's names became the hottest topic in SAO's forums. They became the headline of SAO's forums once again. Players are extremely grateful to the two. Even though Wu Yan and Asuna cleared a lot of floors in the past, they're nothing more than a countdown to the players. Of course they're grateful, but not as grateful as this time. Of course, there are some players who are jealous of the world. In SAO, there's no shortage of disgusting and filthy people. Only they would hide in a corner and curse Wu Yan and Asuna while others are cheering for them. They're also cursing the players who went crazy for the 100th floor. No matter what, SAO is about to arrive. Aincrad's final floor made the players feel like they're seeing the light of dawn. They're already praying in their hearts, praying for the smooth clearing of the last floor. While the others were celebrating, the main characters were also celebrating. Everyone. Klein glanced at his surroundings. Are you ready? Wu Yan, Asuna, Yui, Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Cheyenne, Silica, Suda, Agile, and the others looked at each other. Klein nodded with a smile. He then raised the glass of wine in his hand. Then, to clearing the 99th floor, cheers. Cheers! Everyone raised the cups in their hands and moved closer to the center. Their glasses collided with each other. After a series of clinks and laughter, they drank the wine in their glasses. Of course, Jay and Sheely's glasses were filled with fruit juice. After downing a whole glass of wine in one breath, Klein let out a loud yell of satisfaction. Ah, so comfortable. Don't drink too much. Wu Yan took a step away from Klein. She said expressionlessly, I don't want to carry you back, we don't want to. Kirito, Suda, and Agile said in unison. Klein, who was originally happy, suddenly became unhappy. You guys are too much. It's rare for you guys to be so happy, Wu Yan and the others laughed. Klein blinked his mouth but soon became happy again. Well, forget it. Congratulations, Yan, for clearing the 99th floor. Congratulations to you too. Wu Yan shook his head and laughed. It's the same for everyone. I didn't do it alone. Yes, yes, yes. And Asuna, you two are a model couple. Your combined efforts are better than the entire clearers. Klein raised his glass to Asuna. Congratulations, Asuna. Asuna tilted her head and smiled shyly. Without Yen, I wouldn't have been able to do it alone. After saying that, Asuna put on a sad face and said with lingering fear, if it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't even take a step into that labyrinth. Asuna's words confused those who didn't know what she meant. Wu Yan, Yui, and Liz, who knew Asuna's weakness, secretly laughed. In the past, Aincrad had quite a few similar types of labyrinths. For example, when Asuna was still in charge of the clearers, the 65th and 66th floors of the ancient city labyrinth were filled with shadowy monsters. Asuna didn't have the courage to lead a team to those floors when she heard about the monsters on those floors. In the end, she even found all kinds of excuses to give up the clearers. Back then, Asuna wasn't as optimistic as she is now. Although she knew Wu Yan back then, her relationship with Wu Yan wasn't as close as it is now. In other words, the clearers were still very important to Asuna back then. Yet, Asuna still gave up the clearers because the floors were filled with horror monsters. It was easy to imagine how afraid she was of ghosts and other supernatural beings. Is there one more floor left? Kirito held his cup and looked at the ceiling. We'll be leaving this world soon. The joyous atmosphere at the scene suddenly became somewhat silent. Everyone couldn't help but become silent. Their eyes more or less revealed some memories. Although they all want to leave this world, it's undeniable that this world that they hated the most did leave them with a lot of memories, some good and some bad. Human habits are a very scary thing. After 3 years, the players in SAO have gotten used to this world, including everyone here. Now that the time to leave this world is infinitely close, it made them feel a little sad. Is it because they don't want to leave? Or are they mourning the 3 years that they lost? Probably, they don't even know themselves. However, one thing was for sure. They did not regret logging into the game that day 3 years ago. Asuna smiled gently and looked at Wu Yan. She gently leaned into his arms. Liz did the same. Sachi, Cheyenne, and Silica also held each other's hands. Suda, Klein, and Agile even hugged each other's shoulders tightly. Without this world, they wouldn't be able to get to know each other. From this point of view, they are truly grateful for this game that brought their loved ones and friends to them. Compared to the other players, they were undoubtedly blessed because they had formed many bonds and had many beautiful memories. As such, even if they did not have the urge to cry, they still had smiles on their faces and felt warmth in their hearts. Yui, who was standing at the side, felt it the most. As a mental healing program, Yui's job was to make all the players in the game smile. However, the nature of the game turned everything into nothingness and she almost broke down. But now, everything is different. Although Yui can feel the negative emotions in SAO almost every day, the people around her are smiling from the bottom of their hearts. This makes Yui very touched and happy. She is also grateful to this world for allowing her to meet her parents. She was able to experience the positive emotions that were a luxury for her in the past. Looking at everyone who was smiling at each other, Yui suddenly felt a strong sense of reluctance. She might not be able to see them again after SAO clears the game. Suddenly, 2 hands gently patted her head. Yui quickly looked up and saw Wu Yan and Asuna's smiling faces. Yui smiled. Her smile was very happy and happy. At the same time, her smile was very firm. Chapter 754. Of course, memories are memories. It's weird to be immersed in those memories. It didn't take long for everyone to realize what's going on. Hey, Kirito. Liz raised her head and looked at Kirito with a serious expression. You have to come find me when we get back to the real world. Kirito scratched his head and mumbled in embarrassment under the gaze of so many pairs of eyes. I still haven't paid for the dark chaser you gave me. Liz nodded in satisfaction when she heard Kirito's promise. However, Kirito's embarrassed expression made everyone laugh. What the? Klein looked at Kirito with a teasing smile. You're still a kid, stop bragging. Agile mocked him mercilessly, you can't even compare to a little brat. At least he's married. Klein's smile froze on his face. Seeing this, Suda held his belly and laughed out loud. Asuna was also laughing, but she seemed to have thought of something. Her chestnut-colored eyes slowly shifted to Wu Yen. There was an inexplicable light flowing in her eyes. Wu Yen felt a chill run down his spine. What a captivating sight. Wu Yen turned his head away in an unnatural manner. Asuna's gaze sharpened and her gaze turned frosty. Wu Yen bitterly laughed out loud. Hey, are you worried that I won't want you anymore? Wu Yen pursed his lips and tried to be as tactful as Kirito. I still owe you a wedding ring. Asuna finally showed a beautiful smile. Klein finally couldn't take it anymore. He rubbed his hair as if he was going crazy. Hey. What's wrong with you two? Can't you wait until we get home to show off your love? It's so heartless of you to set off a flashbang here. Asuna and Liz's cheeks turned red, and they put their hands on their hips again. Liz scolded him directly. It's your fault for not getting a girlfriend. Klein immediately knelt down and cried out his grievances. You think I don't want to? If you can find it, who would be here to accuse you winners in life? In the crime scene, Wu Yan had Asuna, and Kirito had Liz. Suda also had a girlfriend. Agile didn't have a companion here, but he was a married man in the real world. Therefore, all the men present, except for Klein, already had their other halves. No wonder he was so disappointed at the thought of this. Klein's heart turned cold, and the tears on his cheeks became thicker. However, he quickly turned his gaze to Sachi, Cheyenne, and Shili. Her eyes started to ripple. The three of them trembled as they looked at Klein's malicious eyes. Without thinking, the three of them hid behind Wu Yen and looked at him with vigilance. My brother is still here. Sachi attacked. Klein's HP dropped by 1 point. You want to hit on me? In your dreams. Cheyenne launched a fierce attack and Klein's HP was reduced by half. You weird uncle. Silica launched a critical attack, and Klein's HP dropped to a critical level. Asuna and Liz stepped forward, but they didn't say anything. They just looked at Klein with disdain. Silence is better than words, and no move is better than a move. KO. Clap. Klein's body bent forward in frustration. His back was covered in darkness. Is this necessary? Is this necessary? Is this necessary? Hearing Klein's cursing words, Jie couldn't bear it anymore and walked up to Klein. It's okay, I'm sure you'll find a girl you love. It was as if Klein had heard the voice of an angel. He raised his head and looked at Yui, who had a gentle smile on her face. Yui-chan, you're the best. Yui lowered her head in embarrassment, and she smiled. Thank you, Uncle Klein. Klein froze on the spot, and his body turned gray and crumbled bit by bit. Only one sentence echoed in the air. Uncle. 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 I'm an uncle. Wu Yan and Ko couldn't take it anymore. They shook their heads helplessly and they exchanged glances. Then, they turned their heads away with an expression that said, this is so embarrassing. They didn't want to look at Klein anymore. Oh right. Suda turned to Wu Yan, and his expression turned serious. Yen, tomorrow, go to the Knights of the Blood HQ in Granzum. Hearing this, everyone put away their joking attitude and cast their eyes on Kata. Klein also stopped fooling around and his expression gradually became serious. Knights of the Bloods HQ. Asuna frowned. Is this an order from the leader? Suda nodded, and Klein took over. Not just Yen, Kirito, Agile, you two should go to the Knights of the Blood HQ as well. The entire clearers will gather there tomorrow. The entire clearers will gather at the Knights of the Blood HQ? Kirito jerked his head up. Could it be? Wu Yen crossed his arms and looked at Klein and Suda. With such a large formation, I'm guessing tomorrow's gathering is for the 100th floor of Aincrad, right? As expected of the Fey swordsman, you hit the nail on the head. Klein joked, and then he continued. Actually, the clearers have been working on this since before the 99th floor was cleared. Suda looked at everyone, and his voice slowly entered everyone's ears. Aincrad has a total of 100 floors. Every floor has a room in the labyrinth that leads to the next floor. Inside the room is the floor's boss. Players have to defeat the boss in order to pass the floor and proceed to the next floor. After 3 years of gaming, there's only one floor left in Aincrad. As long as we defeat the 100th floor's boss, we'll be able to clear the dungeon. Klein and Suda's eyes lit up at the mention of clearing the dungeon, but it quickly dimmed down. But as we all know, the higher the floor, the stronger the boss is. The 25th, 50th, and 75th floors bosses are even more terrifying. Of course, the final floor of Aincrad, the 100th floor's final boss, is undoubtedly the strongest boss in SAO, no one can compare to it. Suda looked at Wu Yen and Kirito with a serious expression. Under such circumstances, the clearers aren't confident in taking down the final boss. So, we have a plan: gather all the top players in SAO and form an alliance with the clearers to take down the boss on the 100th floor in one fell swoop and achieve the final goal of clearing the floor. All the top players in SAO. Wu Yen narrowed his eyes. In other words, Asuna will be summoned as well? Yes. Klein smiled bitterly. After all, this is our final floor, we have to get through it, but if we can't even get through this formation? Agile said with a gruff voice. In this world, we won't have any hope of clearing the dungeon. The atmosphere became heavy, everyone's expression was heavy, even Wu Yen. He knows that the final boss of Aincrad is Heathcliff himself. In other words, the final battle with Heathcliff has finally arrived. Once they reach the 100th floor's boss, Heathcliff will reveal his true identity. Wu Yen guessed that when the time comes, the players who went to the 100th floor to fight the boss will probably suffer quite a bit of a blow. Heathcliff wants to take down all the top players in one fell swoop. Wu Yen didn't know, but he knows that he's the only one who can win this battle. Chapter 755. Aincrad's 55th floor, Granzam. Players who usually roamed this floor of the City of Steel immediately noticed that the atmosphere in Granzam was a little different from usual. They couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different, but Granzam's teleportation gate was especially lively today. On the platform, the teleportation flashes would flash once every few minutes. Players with high-quality equipment were arriving one after another, and they were all heading towards the same direction. Among these people, some were in groups, some were alone, some had a terrifying aura, and some were dressed very low-key, but at a glance, they still gave people a feeling that they were not simple. However, these people all had one thing in common, and that was that their levels were very high. Some of the more observant players also noticed that most of the players who came to Granzam are very famous or were once very famous. They're the kind of players you'd rarely see in the past. For a while, the main streets of Granzam are filled with players who don't fit in with their surroundings. They've attracted the attention of all the players on the street. Many of the players even recognized their names as they walked. It's clear that they're not normal players. It was such a stark change that even the players who passed by noticed something was wrong, let alone those who lived in Granzam. Everyone realized that today's Granzam wouldn't be too peaceful. Pedestrians on Granzam's main streets have started walking to the side to make way for the players in the middle. For the top players who had come to Granzam to walk, the scene was like ancient times. The scene of the emperor and the nobles parading through the streets was the same as when they were paraded through the streets. The normal players of Granzam have become commoners. This could be considered a different type of attention. Many guilds, teams, and players would unconsciously puff out their chests when they faced the gazes of these ordinary players. They would proudly walk past these ordinary players to show off their extraordinariness. There are also those who don't like the attention and have an unnatural expression on their face. Wu Yan, of course, is the latter. Look! Look! What's going on? Is it a famous guild or party? It's even better this time. Take a look, that outfit. Elven swordsman Wu Yan? There's more. Isn't that Lady Asuna the Flash? Where? Where? Move. Let me see. It really is Lady Asuna. Lady Asuna is finally back. What do you mean she's back? Can't you see the elven swordsman is here? She's only here with her husband. Oh yeah. I almost forgot, Lady Asuna is already married. Damn it, I'm so jealous of that elven swordsman. They're here too, all the famous top players are coming one after another. Is there some super rare item in Granzam? Who knows, hey. Haven't you noticed that they're all heading for the headquarters of the Knights of the Blood Oath? I think so. Could it be that they have gathered here for a reason? Was it to clear the 100th floor? I have to admit, the eyes of the spectators are ignorant, but at the same time, they're sharp. No matter where you go, flies are indispensable, and the other indispensable are smart people. It should be said that with the current situation of SAO, with so many famous players gathered at the same time, as long as one had a brain, one could easily guess their purpose in coming here. The 100th floor of Aincrad's dungeon. On the way to the Knights of the Blood Oath HQ, Wu Yan couldn't help but sigh as he listened to the discussions of the players around him. This isn't the first time he's being treated like a monkey, but he just can't get used to it. Asuna, who's receiving more attention than Wu Yan, is also not used to it. When she heard Wu Yan's sigh, she couldn't help but move closer to Wu Yan as if she's trying to draw attention to Wu Yan. In the past year, Asuna almost never appeared in the limelight again. She didn't enjoy this kind of treatment that she used to receive every day. Naturally, Asuna, who liked to live a peaceful life, was not used to this kind of treatment that was similar to chasing after a celebrity. But no matter how uncomfortable she is, she's destined to be the center of attention. After a year, Asuna has undoubtedly become more beautiful than before. She's no longer as immature as she used to be. At 18 years old, she's already showing the charm of a mature woman. Coupled with the fact that she had lived as a wife for a year, the charm that was so soft that it seeped into her bones was like a flower that attracted bees. The moment she appeared in front of the bees, she immediately displayed the attribute of attracting bees and butterflies. Originally, Asuna was an idol in the eyes of the public. After disappearing for a year, not only did her popularity not decrease, but it also increased because she once again showed her face and attracted more and more people. Currently, Asuna's Knights of the Blood uniform that left the deepest impression on the players has disappeared. Since she left the Knights of the Blood, she's no longer wearing that uniform. Instead, she's wearing a white dress with pleated edges. The front of the dress is just above her knees and the back of the dress is pulled all the way down to her ankles. It's similar to a cloak or a battle skirt. She doesn't have the cold and serious aura she used to have. Instead, she looks noble, elegant, and ethereal. If it weren't for the fact that she doesn't have wings and her ears aren't elongated, Asuna would look like an elf. Of course, in Wu Yan's eyes, Asuna looks more like a seductress. She's constantly emitting a seductive aura that makes his heart burn. However, Wu Yan is a little annoyed that his wife is the center of attention. Everyone is pointing at her in front of everyone. They're not even bothering to hide their lust for her. Asuna, let's hurry up. Asuna turned around and looked at Wu Yan. Her chestnut-colored eyes were filled with an inexplicable joy. It's as if she can see through Wu Yan's thoughts. Her discomfort disappeared and was replaced by joy. Her beautiful smile stunned everyone around her. Hey, Yan Kuan. Asuna tugged on Wu Yan's sleeve and she blinked her eyes. Her eyes looked like they could speak. Are you jealous? Wu Yan's expression turned awkward. Why do you have to be so observant in this area? Because. Asuna poked Wu Yan's arm. Sometimes, I want to see you care more about me. Wu Yan was annoyed. Do you have so little confidence in yourself? Are you afraid that I'll have a change of heart? Who knows? Asuna purposely turned her head away, but her eyes were still fixed on Wu Yan's face. Then, she suddenly hugged Wu Yan's arm. Stare. In an instant, he felt the gazes around him turn hostile. It's especially cold, it's like there's a thorn in his back. He's starting to worry if someone will jump out and challenge him to a duel. Asuna. Wu Yan couldn't stay calm anymore. Are you trying to make me public enemy number one? It doesn't matter. What's wrong with that? Asuna said matter-of-factly, it's more intimate this way. Wu Yan pursed his lips. In the end, he had no choice but to accept the hostile gazes. However, Asuna's next move stunned him and the players around him. Chirp. A faint chirp sounded in his ear, followed by a soft and moist sensation on his cheek. Asuna kissed him in front of everyone. While everyone was dumbfounded, Asuna smiled, but her cheeks were slightly red. She hugged Wu Yan's arm and walked forward proudly. Asuna is definitely doing this on purpose. Chapter 756. At the entrance of Knights of the Blood's HQ, 2 Knights of Blood Oath members stood on both sides of the door with spears in their hands. They looked straight ahead as if they were soldiers guarding the city gates. They were very stylish, but they did not chase away unrelated people like they usually did. Instead, they ignored the players who came here and allowed them to enter freely without stopping them at all. They knew that the players who came here today were all invited by their leader, Heathcliff, to participate in the strategy meeting on the 100th floor. Even the weakest of the players here was stronger than them. They were simply sent here to guard the entrance, so they couldn't even hope to compete with them. However, they didn't show any signs of inferiority. Instead, they puffed out their chests and looked proud. So what if they're the gatekeepers? Knights of the Blood is the strongest guild in SAO, and all the players who were invited to this place were summoned by their leader. Even the most important strategy meeting for the 100th floor was held in their headquarters. How could they not be proud of this? If they knew that the guild leader they were so proud of was actually the culprit that caused them to be trapped in this world for 3 years, who knew if they would still be so proud of themselves? Of course, they didn't have to wait until Heathcliff's real identity was revealed. They couldn't maintain that proud look forever because of one person. Hey! One of the gatekeepers saw something and his eyes popped out. He couldn't believe what he saw. He patted his companion's shoulder and pointed his trembling finger in a certain direction. Is that Asuna-sama? As soon as the name, Asuna, entered the other player's ears, his face fell. He immediately looked in the direction the player was pointing at. Following that, his expression became absent-minded. Seeing this scene, Wu Yan and Asuna looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They continued to walk forward until they reached the entrance. The 2 gatekeepers finally came back to their senses. Asuna-sama. The 2 of them shouted excitedly. You're finally back? Asuna smiled awkwardly and shook her head. I just accepted the invitation. I didn't mean to come back. How did this happen? The 2 gatekeepers didn't even try to hide their disappointment. They lowered their heads as if they just heard bad news. Asuna's smile became even wider. Wu Yan's eyebrows twitched. He knew that Asuna's popularity in Knights of the Blood was comparable to a superstar, but he didn't think that after a year, there would still be people who had the same expectations. Did he really marry an incredible person? Asuna wasn't the only one. Mikoto was the princess of Tokuwadai, Shokuhu Misaki was the queen of Tokuwadai, and Chuju was the most popular girl in White Emperor College. All of them were as popular as Asuna in the Knights of the Blood Oath. Although the other girls weren't as eye-catching, they weren't inferior to Asuna in terms of appearance and excellence. And now, all of these young girls were gathered around him. For the nth time, Wu Yan felt like he didn't know how lucky he was. In his past life, he must have smashed a lot of wooden fish. He must have given a lot of recommendation votes to be able to cultivate such good fortune. Asuna, Sama, the leader is waiting for you in the meeting room. The two gatekeepers said. Do you need us to show you the way? Both Wu Yan and Asuna's mouth twitched when they heard this. Heathcliff was waiting for all the invited players, but the gatekeepers made it sound like he was waiting for Asuna alone. They didn't even show anyone the way. Are they trying to please her? Wu Yan shook his head. He stepped forward and he told Asuna. Let's get out of here. Asuna nodded and looked at the two gatekeepers. We can go by ourselves. The two gatekeepers finally noticed Wu Yan's presence. Just like the rest of the crowd, they forgot that Asuna is already married to this man. Rather than saying that they had forgotten, it was better to say that they had all subconsciously chosen to forget. After all, who would want the object of their longing to become the object of another man's arms? The two gatekeepers glared at Wu Yan with hostility. Just as they were about to say something, one of the gatekeepers remembered something and pulled the other to the side, allowing Wu Yan and Asuna to enter the HQ. What are you doing? The gatekeeper grumbled. Why did you pull me back? I wanted to teach that ungrateful bastard a lesson. You can try if you don't want to live. The gatekeeper grumbled. Don't tell me you've forgotten who Asuna's husband is? The gatekeeper's face turned pale when he remembered, but he still forced himself to say. So what? This is the circle, even if it's the circle. The other gatekeeper rudely interrupted him. Have you forgotten what happened a year ago when someone from our guild tried to give him a hard time? The gatekeeper gulped and turned his head away. He didn't want to talk about it again. A year ago, more than 20 guild members tried to give Wu Yan a hard time because of Asuna, Sama. They were all taken down at the entrance of the elven swordsmen. That incident became a big deal in Knights of the Blood Oath. Wu Yan and Asuna won't know what the two gatekeepers are talking about. The two walked through the corridors of the castle. It's not Wu Yan's first time here, and Asuna used to be the vice leader here. She has lived here for 2 years, so she's very familiar with the Knights of the Blood's HQ. Under the watchful eyes of the surrounding players, they walked towards the meeting room. During this period of time, Asuna was still the focus of everyone's attention. Her return after a year made her fans very excited. The members of the Knights of the Blood even started shouting, Asuna, Sama is back. It was as if Asuna had run away from home, causing the two of them to feel very depressed. As they got closer to the meeting room, the number of players around them started to dwindle. Only the invited players are still following Wu Yan and Yao Si. Even though they're still looking at them, at least they're not gossiping anymore. This made them feel a lot more relaxed. Finally, the door of the conference room appeared in front of them. The scene inside the door also appeared in front of their eyes. It wasn't until the two of them walked in that the entire scene was imprinted into their eyes. It's still the same room with glass walls, but this time, it's not just a single desk. Instead, it's a circle of tables. Famous players, guild leaders, and party leaders are sitting in the middle of the room. Beside them are Kirito, Klein, Sutta, and Agile. Wu Yan and Asuna's appearance instantly became the center of attention. Heathcliff smiled faintly and looked at Asuna. Long time no see, Asuna. I'm very happy that you were invited here. Asuna nodded and said, Long time no see, Commander Heathcliff. Take a seat. Wu Yan and Asuna looked at each other and sat down next to Kirito and the others. Heathcliff glanced around. It seems like most of the people are here. Well then, let's get started. The last floor strategy meeting. Chapter 757. All the players in the room were stunned by Heathcliff's words. Then, an inevitable uproar broke out in the conference room. The last floor strategy meeting? Kirito was the first to raise his question. I don't understand what you mean, Commander Heathcliff, let alone Kirito. None of the players understood what Heathcliff meant. Wu Yan, Asuna, and Sutta knew what Heathcliff meant. Klein and Sutta probably knew what Heathcliff meant. Their expressions didn't change at all, they just sat there quietly. Raiding a floor wasn't as simple as heading to the labyrinth area, finding the Guardian Boss's room, and killing the Guardian Boss. If players wanted to challenge the Guardian Boss and clear the floor, they had to consider many issues. For example, the opening of the town on the floor, the exploration of the map between the town and the labyrinth area, the completion of certain quests in the labyrinth area, the exploration of unknown areas, and so on. These are all problems that must be solved in order to clear a floor. That's why, in general, the clearers need to gather together to discuss every small detail of the floor clearer strategy. This is the so-called floor clearer strategy meeting. Due to such a problem, even some of the easier floors required at least 10 strategy meetings to be held before the final boss strategy meeting was held. Of the last 2 floors of Aincrad, the 99th floor had only been cleared a day or 2 ago, and the 100th floor was still being explored. The details of the new map were still being explored. The monsters' levels, skills, and attack patterns haven't been confirmed yet Heathcliff said something like, the last floor strategy meeting. How can this not be surprising? Kirito's question was the same as everyone else's. If it weren't for Heathcliff's confident expression, they would have thought that this gathering was just a joke. Heathcliff seemed to have predicted everyone's reaction. He leaned forward slightly, crossed his fingers, and supported his chin with the back of his hand. He was like a doctor who was announcing the life and death of a patient, causing the faint clamor of the players in the crowd to gradually die down. I know you're all wondering why I said something like that. But please believe your ears, you didn't hear wrong. Heathcliff repeated in a calm tone. After clearing the 99th floor, Knights of the Blood, Moonlit Black Cats, and Furinkazan immediately sent out an exploration team to the 100th floor to gather information. After all, it was the last floor, and at this time, even our clearers couldn't do anything about it. Even the clearers couldn't wait to clear the floor as soon as possible. Everyone nodded in agreement. Only Wu Yan snorted in his mind. Heathcliff was the only one who said something like that. Heathcliff was the only one who said something like that. But seeing how serious Heathcliff was, Wu Yan couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps the only one who could truly love this world is Heathcliff, the creator of this world, Kayaba Akihiko. Look at him now. It's obvious that he's completely immersed himself in the role of Heathcliff, not Kayaba Akihiko. Perhaps the reason he transformed into Heathcliff wasn't just to observe the current state of the players in SAO up close, but also to enjoy the game he created. Heathcliff's explanation made everyone present finally understand why there was such an opening remark. The following is the information from the scouting parties of the 3 guilds that entered the 100th floor. Heathcliff looked around. Then he said something that surprised everyone. There are no wild areas, no monsters, and no labyrinths on the 100th floor of Aincrad. There's only one city on the 100th floor. What? Everyone was stunned on the spot, but those who were quick-witted instantly thought of a possibility. The layout of Aincrad gradually decreased as the number of floors increased. There were only 4 towns on the 99th floor, and it only took them 1 or 2 days to explore the wilderness. It was understandable that the 100th floor, which was even smaller than the 99th floor, only had 1 town. But there's no wild areas, no monsters, no labyrinths. If there's no wild areas, no monsters, no labyrinths, and only 1 city. Kirito frowned and looked at Heathcliff. Then, where is the final boss of the stage? Everyone held their breaths, and Heathcliff glanced at Kirito indifferently. That's what I'm about to say, Heathcliff stood up and slowly said in front of everyone. The 100th floor of Aincrad is a single city. There are many NPCs living in the city. The hotels, restaurants, and buildings are exactly the same as the other floors. At the center of the city, there's a palace. Heathcliff raised his head. His eyes flickered with an indecipherable expression as he spoke word by word. Red Jade Palace. Everyone started whispering among themselves. Wu Yan, who has been listening to Heathcliff, suddenly spoke. The final boss is in the Red Jade Palace, right? The entire meeting room went silent. Like a duck being choked by its throat, no one dared to say a word. They all turned their gazes towards Wu Yan. He's the strongest player in Sao. Heathcliff looked at Wu Yan for a long time before he nodded. That's right. There's not a single monster on the 100th floor. The only monster is in the Red Jade Palace. In other words, our last enemy is the final boss. At this moment, everyone finally understood what Heathcliff meant when he said, the final floor strategy meeting. There's only one boss on the 100th floor of Aincrad. They don't need to explore the wilderness, trigger quests, or explore unknown areas in the labyrinth. They just need to go to the Red Jade Palace and challenge the final boss. Victory. They will be liberated. Failure. All players will fall into the abyss forever. A heavy atmosphere spread in the air, causing every player to lower their head and ponder on the spot. Knowing that their last enemy was the true boss of the Red Jade Palace, no one was happy at all. Instead, they felt their hearts sink. The players here can be said to be the best players in the entire Sao. All of them. If they were to challenge the final boss, it would be fine if they won. Liberation was everyone's dream. However, if they failed, no one would be able to bear the consequences. If they lose the strongest players, who knows when the next batch of players will be able to challenge the final boss? If they have to form a bigger and stronger team, how long will that take? Moreover, no one is willing to sacrifice themselves, but the consequence of failure is total annihilation. While everyone was silent, Heathcliff knocked on the table. His voice was loud and clear, as if it echoed in everyone's heart. Tomorrow, it's time for everyone to challenge the final boss. Please be prepared and gather at the 100th floor's teleport gate. Heathcliff couldn't help but shift his gaze to Wu Yan, and Wu Yan also happened to look at him. The two looked at each other for a while, then turned their heads away as if nothing happened. Tomorrow, everything will be decided. Chapter 758. Aincrad, 22nd floor. The moonlight of the night covered the forest with a layer of silver gauze. The lake in the distance reflected a little bit of light during the turbulence. The mountain and the flowing water followed their mission since they were born. One quietly guarded the place without a trace of fluctuation, the other followed the fixed path slowly, without a trace of depression. The tranquil night became even more profound with this movement and silence. Even though the two scenes that could not be any more ordinary were confirming each other's existence, and even their way of survival were different, they still brought unimaginable peace. It was believed that even the most impatient person would be involuntarily lost in such a scene, and enjoy the sudden silence. The wooden villa's balcony slowly opened. Wu Yan walked out of the dark living room and walked up to the wooden fence. He placed his hands on the fence and stared at the scenery in front of him. He has the same feeling that only Asuna had in the past. Is this world really an imaginary one? The vast forest is like a painting in front of him. The mountains and the flowing water complemented each other. The lake is calm at times and ripples at other times. The wind blew through the forest, the mountains, the flowing water, the lake, and Wu Yan who is standing on the balcony. If everything in front of him was taken apart one by one, it would be no different from the forests, lakes, mountains, and rivers in the real world. Only when they were combined together and turned into a beautiful fairyland-like scenery would it be able to make people lose themselves in a dreamlike illusion, right? After all, this is the real world. It's hard to find such a beautiful scene. It's no wonder Wu Yan had this thought when he was feeling melancholy. He looked up at the beautiful night sky that can only be seen in dreams. The intertwining galaxy illuminates the darkness. However, one could clearly see every little star inside. They were emitting their own faint light. They were shining with their own brilliance, but when combined together, they could also illuminate the darkness that enveloped them, making it impossible for people to ignore them. Tomorrow, this beautiful world will also disappear when the final boss standing in the Red Jade Palace falls, right? As for Sao, in the past, Wu Yan only treated it as a game. He didn't think too much about it. He didn't feel fear, despair, or disgust like other players. He has power that no one in this world can compare to. He logged into the game without any pressure. He has the body of a true ancestor and he won't die. It's thanks to the system that he came to this world. He didn't have the helmet or the pressure of death. To Wu Yan, this world is nothing more than a game. Even after he met Asuna, Yui, Kirito, Sachi, Silica, and the others, he didn't change his mind. It's just a game that evolved into a platform. He got to know Asuna and the others, but he didn't feel the pressure of death that other players should feel. While the other players hated, feared, and loathed this world, Wu Yan is sizing it up. He's thinking about how much fun this world can bring him. That's all he's thinking about. After living in Sao for 3 years, Wu Yan got used to living in this world. Although he didn't forget about the real world like other players, he didn't want to let this world disappear. Thinking back to the past, when he didn't have the system, as an otaku, he had fantasized more than once that he could play a game just like in reality. Even if he could experience it himself, he would be satisfied. Now, his dream had been realized. In a way, he had to thank the system and Kayaba Akihiko. And that wasn't the only reason. There were many places in this world that left him with beautiful memories. His home on the 22nd floor, the garden of flowers on the 47th floor where he had his wedding with Asuna, and Asuna's original home on the 61st floor. These places were undoubtedly beautiful. Wu Yan didn't want Sao to disappear from the world due to the crimes committed by Kayaba Akihiko. He didn't want Sao to disappear along with Kayaba Akihiko. He wants to leave everything here behind. While Wu Yan was lost in his thoughts, he heard light footsteps behind him. He didn't turn around because he knew who it was. A pair of soft and slender hands reached out from behind him and wrapped around his waist. At the same time, an incomparably soft and delicate body slowly squeezed onto his back, accompanied by a familiar fragrance and warmth. What's wrong? Wu Yan wrapped his hand around Asuna's waist. Why aren't you sleeping yet? I can't sleep, Asuna said softly. She rubbed her face against Wu Yan's back. I feel a bit lonely without your company. You're an adult. Do you still need someone to sleep with you? Wu Yan laughed. Where's Yui? Yui, she's asleep, I see. Wu Yan pondered for a moment. Don't you feel uneasy? Yui. Tomorrow, Sao will be cleared completely. All the players will be logged out of this world, including Wu Yan and Asuna. Yui is the AI in Sao. For Yui, the imaginary world in other people's eyes is her home. Once they leave, perhaps Yui will be the only one left in this world. She'll be living alone here. No, based on the nature of Sao, it's more likely that it'll disappear into history. Humans won't allow such an evil world to continue existing. When that happens, Yui will disappear along with Sao. Asuna understood what Wu Yan meant. She shook her head and said in an ethereal voice. Yui said that daddy has a way, that girl. Wu Yan smiled fondly. Fortunately, I have a way. If I let her down, I'll be a sinner. Asuna let go of her hand and walked to Wu Yan. She faced him and wrapped her arms around his neck. She looked at his face and gradually lost herself. I've always trusted you, whether it's Yui or me. Wu Yan rubbed Asuna's head and rested his chin on her head. Although he didn't say anything, his actions were firm. Asuna's heart was filled with trust. Her uneasiness about tomorrow slowly dissipated. Nah. Asuna squeezed herself into Wu Yan's embrace. Tomorrow, we'll succeed, right? Of course. Wu Yan said in a serious tone. I will end everything and bring you back to the other world. Then, we'll meet again. Yui and I will be together. We'll be a family, no one will be left behind. Asuna's eyes teared up. Hope flashed through her eyes. Meet you in the real world? I'm looking forward to it. Wu Yan's face softened. He lowered his head. Please look forward to it. Asuna giggled and snuggled into Wu Yan's embrace. Wu Yan hugged Asuna back. They didn't say anything. They quietly felt each other's presence. It's as if they could hear each other's thoughts. There are two bodies, but their minds are fused together. There's no difference. Wu Yan has always felt this sensation of spiritual fusion. For example, when he fused his life force with the girls in Silveria, he felt this way. Strangely, Asuna didn't fuse with him, but he still felt this way. It's unbelievable. Tomorrow, after a while, Asuna's voice echoed in the air. Nothing must happen to you, Wu Yan smiled. I'll be fine, and I won't let anything happen to you. We've made a promise. Yeah, we've made a promise. Chapter 759. Aincrad, 55th floor. Wu Yan and Asuna held Yui's hand as they walked over to Sachi. They handed Yui's hand over to her. Sachi, please take care of Yui for a while. Sachi nodded and hugged Yui. She said softly, don't worry, brother. Yui and I will be here waiting for your news. It has to be good news. Xian gestured with her little fist. If it's bad news, I'll hate you for the rest of my life. Don't worry. Wu Yan smiled as he ruffled Xian's hair into a bird's nest. It won't take long, Wu Yan Oniai-san. Silica clenched her teeth as she hugged Pina tightly. She stared at Wu Yan, Asuna, Kirito, Sutta, Klein, and Agile. She held back her tears and shouted. You have to do your best. You have to be safe. Wu Yan and the others looked at each other and smiled. They didn't say anything as they nodded at Silica with determination. Liz, Sachi, Xian, and Silica felt their hearts ache as they watched the six of them standing in a row. There's nothing more torturous than having to sit at home and wait for news while the people around you risk their lives. Liz walked up to Kirito and helped him fix his collar. It's rare for her to be so gentle. We said we'll meet again in the real world. If you go back on your words, I'll chase after you and beat you up. Kirito trembled when he heard Liz's words. Kirito couldn't help but tremble. His dark pupils suddenly sharpened. He can't lose, even if it's for Liz's sake. Daddy. Mommy. Yui held Wu Yan and Asuna's hands and placed them on her cheeks. With her eyes closed, a serene expression appeared on her face. I'll wait for the day we meet again. Ah. Wu Yan and Asuna squatted down and hugged Yui. We'll see each other again. Oniai-san. Sachi couldn't help but throw herself into Wu Yan's arms. Silica couldn't help but throw herself into his arms as well. Even Xian threw herself into Asuna's arms. You have to live well, don't let anything happen to you, Sachi. Silica. Wu Yan rubbed Sachi and Silica's head. He said softly. I'm sorry. You call me Oniai-san, but I've never done my duty, that's not it. Silica shook her head. If it wasn't for Oniai-san, Pino would have died in that forest. I also died in that forest. If it wasn't for Brother Wu Yan, I wouldn't have known everyone. I would have continued to live a life of fear in the lower floors. It was Brother Wu Yan who saved me. I'm Brother S's brothers'. Me too. Sachi raised her head. I'm a coward. I've been hiding in the town of beginnings ever since the game started. Even though I forced myself to stay with the guild master and the others, I was still scared every night. I was scared that I'd die. At this time, Big Brother appeared. Sachi revealed a beautiful smile and said, You defeated the final boss by yourself and became the strongest existence in the world. Not only did you help us when we were in trouble, you even gave us items that you didn't need to use. I know that Big Brother has always cared about us. It's because of Oniai-san that I was able to help the guild master and the others. I didn't lose my usefulness, and I didn't have to go to the battlefield. I've been living under Oniai-san's wing, so, Oniai-san. You're my idol. My idol for life. Sachi shouted with unprecedented boldness. Oniai-san, you've always been the strongest. You won't be defeated by a monster created by a program. I believe in you too. I believe in you too. Xian, who was hugging Asuna, couldn't help but shout. If it wasn't for Yen, I wouldn't have dared to leave the town of beginnings, and I wouldn't have been able to find a place like this. Everyone took me in, and we'll all return to the real world together. When that time comes, I'll repay everyone. Xian's words made everyone laugh out loud. The painful atmosphere suddenly turned for the better. Wu Yan walked in front of everyone and nodded as he announced in a clear voice. Everyone. We'll make it. We'll make it. Asuna, Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Xian, Silica, Suda, Klein, Agile, and Yui all shouted at the top of their lungs. Their voices reverberated far, far away. Aincrad, 100th floor. The 100th floor is a hole. There's no wilderness area, no labyrinth area, and no leveling area. There's only a large city that covers the entire 100th floor. After passing the 99th floor, almost every player would come here to take a look because they wanted to know what the final floor was like. At the same time, they also wanted to tell others that they, too, walked to the end and lived to the end. By now, almost every player in Aincrad knew that there were no monsters on the 100th floor. There was only one monster in the Crimson Palace at the center of the city. The final boss. After defeating it, the players will be truly liberated. The Red Jade Palace will be the final floor that baffles all players. Not only that, but the players who were usually active on other floors and could not participate in this raid also came to the Teleportation Gate Plaza on the 100th floor. They consciously walked to the side and did not join the top players. Instead, they set up stalls around the Teleportation Gate Plaza. They took out all the items they have in their inventory and gave them to the top players who need them for free. After the boss is killed and they leave this world, these items won't be of much use to them. If they can use them to increase their chances of winning, why not? Of course, the value of these items depends on the success of the raid. If they fail this time, they'll have a hard time in the future. They might not even have enough money to eat. That's why they're staking it all on this. There were also selfish people. Even if they hoped to clear the dungeon, they didn't dare to give away all their wealth unconditionally. These people hid in other floors, praying in their hearts that they could clear the dungeon. At the same time, they were also mocking the players who offered unconditional help. They were laughing at their foolish actions, but they didn't know how ugly their smiling faces were at that moment. The top players didn't reject the good intentions of the players who came to help for free. After receiving the items in their hands, the top players gave them a hug and told them that they'll definitely make use of these items to their fullest potential. For a while, the Teleport Gate Plaza of Aincrad's 100th floor was filled with touching scenes. Some players gave their best wishes to the top players while others cried and asked them to come back safely. This is unthinkable in SAO where there are only negative emotions. The tear-inducing scene made the top players who were about to enter the Red Jade Palace even more resolute. They were all shouting in their hearts. We'll succeed. Chapter 760. Wu Yan, Asuna, Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile also arrived at the 100th floor's teleport plaza. They looked at each other and they couldn't help but laugh out loud when they saw the touching scene. Everyone cheered when they saw the 6 of them. They are all famous players. Wu Yan, the strongest player in the game, Asuna, the black swordsman, Kirito, the leader of Moonlit Black Cats, Suda, and Klein, the leader of Furinkazan. Agile is the only one who doesn't have a title. However, some of the players know that this black-hearted businessman has been using the money he earned to nurture the clearers. Isn't that enough for him to earn everyone's respect? That's why even though Agile doesn't have a title, his reputation is no less than any of the players here. Coupled with the strength of the 6 of them, there was no doubt that they would become the main force in this final boss battle. They were also the ones who could rely on them. This is really... Agile walked down from the platform as he listened to the cheers around him. He touched his bald head embarrassedly. This is the first time I've been treated like this. Who told you to be so black-hearted? Klein laughed and puffed out his chest. Look at me, I've been treated like this all my life. Too bad there's not a single girl in this treatment. Kirito said maliciously. Klein's hair stood on end. You bastard, will you die if you don't talk about girls for a day? I can't help it. Suda also cracked a joke. Well, you're the only one who's single among us. Wu Yan didn't say anything. He wrapped his arm around Asuna's waist, and a smug look appeared on his expressionless face. Like a sharp arrow, it pierced through Klein's fragile heart. If it wasn't for the fact that they're in public, he would have done the same thing again. Amidst the cheers and cheers, the six of them joked around as if there was no one else around. The atmosphere was turning more and more joyful. Those who didn't know would think that they were going on a trip instead of risking their lives. As the clearers from yesterday's strategy meeting arrived one by one, more and more people gathered at the teleport gate plaza. This is after excluding the clearers who aren't strong enough to fight. Otherwise, the clearers alone would have been enough to cause such a scene. However, when all the players who are heading to Red Jade Palace arrived, the Knights of Red Jade Palace still haven't arrived. The members of the Knights of the Blood Oath had yet to arrive. Now, they were the only ones missing, and all the members for this raid had arrived. Heathcliff, what the hell is he doing? Klein rubbed his messy hair in annoyance. He shouted in dissatisfaction, today is the final battle, and the clearers are the first to be late. Did something happen? Kirito said with a frown. Even though Kirito subconsciously hated Heathcliff, he couldn't help but feel that Heathcliff's calm expression and eyes contained something he didn't like. However, he knew that Heathcliff wasn't someone who didn't know what was important. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the leader of the strongest guild. Do you want to send him an email? Agile looked at Keita, who was beside him. At least give him a push, I already did. Suda smiled bitterly and opened his profile. I even sent it to the higher-ups of Knights of the Blood, but I didn't get a reply. Asuna had a bad feeling when she heard Suda's words. She hugged Wu Yan's arm and she asked him with a worried expression. Did something happen to him? When I was still in the clearers, our leader didn't show any signs of abnormality. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and patted Asuna's hand. When he was about to say something, a light flashed on the teleportation platform and the members of Knights of the Blood finally appeared. However, they didn't feel relieved at all. Because Heathcliff was nowhere to be seen. What the hell is going on? Klein was the first to ask. Where's your leader? The few Knights of Blood Oath's members looked at each other and put on an expression that was even uglier than crying. We don't know either, everyone was shocked. Klein even violently grabbed a person's collar. What do you mean you don't know? You don't even know your leader, do you think he's missing? We really don't know. Another member of Knights of the Blood quickly stepped forward. Leader hasn't appeared since this morning. We can't find him anywhere. He didn't even reply to our emails. The guild is in a mess. What's going on? Suda frowned. Don't tell me Heathcliff isn't going to participate in this raid? He didn't run away, did he? Agile looked at the members of the Knights of the Blood Oath with an unfriendly gaze. What he said immediately angered them. You bastard, wait. Asuna stepped forward and glared at the members of Knights of the Blood with her chestnut-colored eyes. We're going to fight side by side. Do you want to fight among yourselves? The members of Knights of the Blood quickly lowered their heads in panic. Asuna used to be their vice leader. She had both strength and beauty, and she had a lot of prestige in the guild. Even though she had left the guild, the members of Knights of the Blood still didn't dare to provoke her. Lady Asuna. A member of Knights of the Blood spoke to Asuna. Leader isn't here. What do you think we should do? Asuna said awkwardly. I've left the guild. I'm no longer your vice leader. You should decide for yourselves, but... The members of Knights of the Blood looked at each other again, not knowing what to do. Without a leader, they didn't know what to do in this raid. It was not just the Knights of Blood Oath who were talking about it. The top-class players who came to raid the dungeon were also talking about it. In the end, the person in charge who gathered everyone to raid the dungeon did not appear, and it had to be said that this caught everyone off guard. Wu Yan suddenly spoke. We don't need to wait for Heathcliff. Let's go. Wah. Everyone was stunned. Are we really not going to wait for him? Kirito said hesitantly. Heathcliff is the person in charge of this raid. He's only slightly weaker than you. He has a unique skill called Sacred Sword. His defense can help us block a lot of fatal attacks. Yes, yes. Klein also said, maybe something is holding him back. Wu Yan didn't show anything on his face, but he bitterly smiled in his mind. Should he tell them that Heathcliff is Kayaba Akihiko, the final boss of Red Jade Palace? Once these words were spoken, the Knights of the Blood Oath would probably turn hostile, not to mention the others. Wu Yan continued. Heathcliff isn't someone who's all talk and no action. If he didn't show up after organizing this raid, I'm sure he won't show up again. There's no point in waiting any longer. Wu Yan glanced at everyone. Even if I'm alone, I'll still go to Red Jade Palace. Wu Yan ignored the reactions of the others and he walked towards the center of the city. Asuna quickly followed after him. Kirito and the others exchanged glances before following after Wu Yan. The others exchanged glances with each other before they followed after Wu Yan and the others as well. Wu Yan is the strongest player in the game. It's worth following him. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.